Should be live. Just gotta set things up the right way. Howdy, howdy. Welcome, welcome. All right, everything should be set up, so I think we're good to go. Should be good to go. Yeah, we just started. So welcome if you're just arriving. Welcome, welcome. What have I done today? Look, I don't need an audit from a viewer. I'm sorry. I don't need that. Welcome, welcome. Grifting and rude? I'm grifting. I am? Doesn't that mean that I don't believe what I'm saying? Pretty sure I believe what I'm saying. Oh, is Dewey's dream, is he like a troll? Yeah, probably. Howdy, howdy. Hope everybody's having a spectacular day. I don't know if that's a word. Should be, though, even if it isn't. Welcome, welcome. Remember to share the live if you are you're just getting here. Share it with your buddies. You guys know the drill. Ah, we have a guest. It's Savage 2X. I believe we've spoken before, but sure, let's talk. Savage, how's it going? Oh, he's not here. Savage?
Yeah.
What religion do you believe in?
I'm from Nigeria. I believe in God.
Okay, yeah, why?
I believe in Jesus Christ.
Why?
Why? Because I've prayed to Him and He answers my prayer, and I have the Holy Spirit in me.
So, when you say you pray to Him and He answers, do you, like, hear voices, or?
No.
So how do you know He's answering?
Through, obviously, when you pray for something, you're making a request, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the answering of that request means that my prayer has been responded to.
By the way, your microphone is like really out of whack. I don't know if you can like be more consistent. It's both your microphone and your connection is just not good.
Is it better now?
It's all right now, yeah.
All right.
So let me ask you this about prayer. So if you pray for something that's not in God's plan, would He still do it?
Well, I'll tell you something, right?
Can you answer that question with a yes or no? Then you can explain afterwards, but can you answer that question with a yes or no?
If it's not your time, then He's not going to do it.
Sorry, that wasn't my question.
Yes.
So if you pray for something and it's not in God's plan, He will still grant it?
Oh, no. Sorry.
Okay.
No.
Follow-up question. If you pray for something that is part of God's plan, what was the point of prayer?
Well, God can have plans for you, but as human beings, you can push those plans further.
What does prayer do if He was going to do the thing anyway?
I'll tell you something, right? Prayer is just, and you can also pray to appreciate Him for what he's going to do in faith.
Okay, so prayer doesn't have anything to do with the request. The requests are
It's
meaningless.
not only about prayer is not only about a request. Prayer is communication with God, right?
Okay, but they don't actually mean anything. They don't do anything.
Praying?
Yeah, it doesn't actually do anything.
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, if the thing that you ask for isn't in his plan, he's not going to grant the prayer. And if it is in his plan, he would have done it anyway. It just seems like it doesn't achieve anything.
It does achieve something.
What does it achieve?
It achieves a lot. Yeah, I just told you, like, praying is not only about asking God for something. It's communication with God. Do you
Yeah,
understand?
so how does he communicate back with you?
Well, he communicates back with us through the Holy Spirit.
So just feelings?
Well, I would personally say, like, your conscience, your mind. Man is made up of spirit, soul, and body.
Can you prove that spirit? Wait, what's the difference between a spirit and a soul?
Well, a soul, I would say, is your essence,
What's an
right?
essence? What is that?
I'll leave that up to you to define, but I would
Okay, so
say
you
that,
can't. So that in other words, you can't define that.
well, in other words, I choose to let you interpret
No, I want you
what
to
I
define the
mean.
word. That'd be good.
Oh, I don't know how to really define that. I would say, okay, like essence of life, if that's the way I would describe it. Now, your soul, right? Let me tell you, your spirit can be corrupted, your flesh can die, right? But your soul is pure, like
Yeah, so I don't
it's
understand the distinction because traditionally the soul and the spirit are the same thing.
in some cultures, right?
Well, you're
But
a
not all.
Christian, so in Christian culture,
Yeah,
that's like they're like the same thing, right?
no,
Oh,
no,
okay. Okay.
no.
So why should I believe any of this?
Why I should? Okay.
Do you have like an argument
I'll.
or
We should believe in this because it has been scientifically proven that there was a man named Jesus Christ and he existed and he died for our sins, right?
well, I don't think he died
And
for our
there's
sins.
also
So
he died for man.
I don't think he
So
did.
what?
I think he died because he was a leader of a rebel faction. Kind of like Luke Skywalker if he had not had his hand lopped off but instead was nailed to a teeth.
Because he was a rebel, right?
Sorry?
That's fun. Can you prove that? Can you tell me why I should believe that? He was the leader of the rebel
Well, he
faction.
was literally a rebel faction leader, right? Like that's
Okay.
literally he was leading a breakaway faction of Judaism, literally.
Okay. I'll do it. Okay.
So like
But
that's
how was
that's
how
not
was
up for debate.
how was he
That's a
able
true
to?
that's a true statement.
Okay, so you agree that there was a man named Jesus Christ,
Yep, and that he died because he was leading a
and he had
disruptive
12
faction of Jewish
disciples,
people. Yep, I agree.
and he had 12 disciples,
Yeah.
and they all died for the sake,
They all died from what?
and they all died for the sake. They all died for their
Oh, I don't
belief
believe
in
that.
Jesus. Okay, so why do you believe? Why do you believe they were killed?
I don't even know if they were killed. because the only evidence that we have of them being killed
There's a
is
lot
like
of
church
evidence
tradition
to
from like
that.
100 years later.
There's a lot of evidence to that, bro. I'll
Okay,
tell you
what's
to
the
do your
evidence?
research.
What's the evidence?
Do your research
Cite me
on
the
that,
primary
bro.
resources.
You're on the call. Like, okay, like, I'll send you via messages. I'll send you links to all these things I'm saying, bro.
Don't send me
I'm
videos.
not,
Don't send me
no, I'm
quotes.
not.
I want you to send me
Yeah.
the names of the documents
Okay.
that have
Okay.
this historical evidence in it.
Okay.
Okay?
Hold on. Yeah. Hold on. Let me write it down. I'll just follow me back and
Yeah,
please.
what I would like from you is I would like the names of
Let me send the
primary
mail.
sources. I would like the
Okay.
names of primary sources for
Okay.
at least 4 disciples that were executed
Okay.
for believing in Jesus. Okay? That's what I want.
Okay.
4 disciples.
Okay. I'll send that to you.
Okay.
Don't.
All right. Take care, Savage. All right, let's bring up the next guest. Oh, we have a Nazi in the chat. Chebarek? Chebarek, you here? Oh, that says sinner. I thought it was like a song or something. No, it said sinner. Rick, how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. How are you doing, Blitz?
I'm doing all right. What religion do you believe in?
So I'm gonna be honest. I am atheist, but I hit a premise last night about proving God that I couldn't disprove in my mind.
All right,
and
run
so
it
I
by me.
wanted a little bit of help.
That's fine. Run it by me.
So first off is the definition of God that I'm going to use is just a supernatural entity, possibly a source of energy potential that caused the space-time universe. So basically, if there are in the all potential worlds, if there is a possibility of a God as a ultimate cause or uncaused causer, then how do we rule that the universe? So if universe A is caused by God, how do we rule out that universe B cannot have a
So this is the
different
ontological
possible? I know. Dang
so
it!
all you have to do is just reject. You just ask them to demonstrate that it's possible that that a God created the universe. That's all.
So like the
You could get into the weeds about
Aristotelian creation argument.
Well, no, I'm just saying that
disproves it, or what?
So the only way, so the way the argument works is that premise 1, it is possible that a necessary God it is possible that a necessary God exists.
Mm-hmm.
Premise 2, if it's possible that a necessary thing exists, then it is necessary that that thing exists. Conclusion, the necessary thing exists. You just have to reject the first premise. Prove that
Under
it's,
what
or rather just ask them to demonstrate that it's true. If they're making the argument, all you have to do is they have to demonstrate the premise, right? Demonstrate that it's possible that a God created the universe. And then you can and then you can poke and prod about what modal scope they're under, whether they're talking about logical possibility, metaphysical possibility, physical possibility,
Right.
etc.
Okay.
That's how I would run it anyway.
I just always hated the ontology argument. It's
a terrible argument. It convinces nobody but Christians.
I know. Well, and the only guy that I've been debating is a complete nihilist, and so
if he's a nihilist, how does he get around to Christianity?
Oh no, it's not Christianity. It's he's his own god, or prove that you're real. All the extreme nihilism.
Okay.
But I guess because I like your axiom. You know, we all have agreed upon axioms for us to make any kind of logical deduction at all.
Right.
So I don't know. Like it's frustrating. I'm still pre-Phil, bro. But
yeah, no, we all get there eventually. But I'm gonna let you go, Ricky Tiki Tabby. But thanks for being here.
Of course,
Good luck,
I love you. You're awesome.
Take care, bud. Science be with ye. It's always funny. All right, let's bring up Natamat. By the way, remember to like the live if you're watching on TikTok or YouTube, wherever you're watching from. Like the live. It gets more people in here, which means more conversations. Natamat, how's it going?
It's fantastic. You're the smartest person on YouTube, TikTok that I know.
I appreciate that. What religion do you have?
I have the question about the pyramids. What's going on with the pyramids?
That's not the topic of conversation today, bud.
I just wanted to know your view on it, though.
All right, they were made by people.
Have a conversation about that.
Take care. They were made by people. Take care.
Nigga, I'm 100% nigga. Nigga.
Jesse Johnson, what religion do you believe in?
Oh man, I know you hate this, but all of them. I believe in all of them.
Okay. Do you believe that Jesus rose from the dead?
I do.
Okay. Do you believe that that Osiris was birthed from a chopped off penis thrown into the Nile?
Oh boy, no, I don't know anything about Osiris.
Oh, well then you don't believe in all of them.
Well, all of them that have some sort of, credence.
Oh, so do you believe that Odin slayed the frost giants?
Not sure. I'd have to investigate more.
There are Norse pagans that exist. They have like a following. They have certain creeds. So it seems like you believe. So it seems like you don't believe in all of them. You just kind of believe in like traditional Abrahamic ones.
Yeah, I believe God exists. I believe God is a not linear, not.
All right. Do you have an argument for the existence of this God?
So I would ask you a question that would help illustrate this for me a little bit. But why do we have emotions and why do we feel them and why?
I might not know, but a question's not an argument.
Sure. Oh well, no, it's not an argument. It's a foundation for why believing in God.
I know. So I was asking for an argument.
Oh, then I'll pose it a different way as instead of a question. I believe that because we have emotions. And those emotions, for some or for many people, I would say the overwhelming majority of people, seem to correspond to a goodness in nature. That doesn't seem to fit in a random, in a random universe without design. And without
can you defend that premise? Like, why would we not expect emotions in a natural universe?
What's that?
Why would we not expect emotions in a natural universe?
You and I have had this conversation before. I think that if we are talking about just an explosion
It's not what the Big Bang is. If we've had this conversation before, then you know that.
It is. Look up explosion. Explosion is a rapid expansion.
No, an explosion is a chemical reaction originating from a single point. That's not what the Big Bang is.
Look up the definition. Okay. I'll look it up with you. We can go together.
Explosion definition. A violent shattering or blowing apart of something as is caused by a bomb. That doesn't describe the Big Bang.
A rapid expansion of matter.
Okay, well then, okay, fine. So it wasn't the matter that was expanding; it was the universe. But
so if we have, well, what's the universe?
Space, time, and matter.
Right. So it would stand to reason that matter is a larger component of that, what we can visibly tangibly.
What? Anyway, so can you argue? Can you defend the position that we wouldn't expect emotions to arise out of a Big Bang?
Yeah.
What's the defense?
So let me gather my thoughts here because I need to make sure that I execute this well. Is entropy something that is what's the second law of thermodynamics?
The entropy of a closed system never decreases.
it always increases. So we should see more entropy.
It never decreases. That's different.
Should we see more entropy from 12 billion years or less entropy?
Yeah, we do see more entropy.
Right. So if things began from a very organized, less chaotic state and have now, over 12 billion years, supposedly have gained more entropy, why are we seeing complex systems as we are now and becoming more complex?
So if
more organized,
presumably we've had this discussion. If we have, so one of the things that happens in the process from going to low entropy to high entropy is that you expect complexity to arise in the middle. The analogy that's often given is if you mix milk with coffee, before it becomes fully mixed and homogeneous, which is a high entropy state, you get swirls upon swirls upon swirls, which is very complicated. Beyond that, though, the entropy of the observable universe is like 50 orders of magnitude higher than the early universe was. So, like, the entropy is wildly higher now than it was 13.8 billion years ago.
But yet we have less. So at the birth of a universe, we wouldn't have had, multi-celled organisms, planetary.
That's not a significant, contributor to low entropy.
It may not be significant to you or your audience, but it is to me.
No, it's not significant numerically, right? The only thing that the second law of thermodynamics implies is that the entropy of the whole system doesn't decrease. So you can have localized pockets of low entropy as long as you have more high entropy elsewhere, which we do.
And this is observed and stated in what? You're saying that
all
this
of
is
cosmology. A single black hole has more entropy than the entire observable universe did 13.8 billion years ago.
A single black hole has more entropy than the entire universe did 13 billion years ago.
Yes.
Okay. So with the argument in mind that we are supposed to be moving towards more entropy.
Yep. More black holes are forming. Yeah.
We don't. We have more complex systems, such as human beings, multi-celled life.
Any black holes growing or forming increases the entropy far more than our solar system could ever contribute to lowering it. But our solar system doesn't lower the entropy of the universe, by the way. The entropy in our solar system is increasing.
So moving towards more entropy, and we're actually having more complex beings.
Complexity is not the same as entropy. Complexity is not low entropy. Complexity can be low, middle, or high entropy.
Is entropy or high entropy more? Would you define it as chaos or
No.
chaotic? Less organized.
I would define it as
less organized.
I would define it as high in information.
Would you also define it as less organized? High entropy would be less organized.
No, it's higher. It's higher in information. That's what high entropy is.
Bear with me a second. So high entropy would be a lack of order, predictability, and gradual decline.
That's like a layperson understanding. High entropy is high information. Low entropy is low information. That's the technical definition of Shannon entropy, for example.
Let's dumb it down for me. So we don't have to get lost in the big words.
But here's the thing: you're going to equivocate on what order means in this context. So I'm not going to let you do that.
Well,
because complexity is not the same thing as order, and disorder is not the same as lack of complexity. Those are not the same thing.
It says for entropy, lack of order or predictability, gradual decline.
Are you looking in like an English dictionary? Because we're talking about a physics concept, so you would need to go look in a physics textbook.
Bear with me, buddy. I'm not going to let you off the hook with this one.
Okay, go look in a physics textbook. The way that it'll define entropy is the logarithm of the number of microstates associated with a macrostate, something like that. Or it might describe it as the logarithm of the like the base 2 logarithm of the information contained within a system. If you're talking about Shannon entropy.
Transfer of information in a particular message or language.
Yep.
So if you want for the sake of bolstering your argument, to convolute it by stating that the definition doesn't suffice for you, that's fine. But for me, a very simple, less convoluted, less obfuscated answer, which is less and more, right? Less entropy, more entropy, and we should be moving towards more entropy, which would be less disorder, right? Which we're not.
No,
we're not.
Except if you think entropy is disorder, then the second law of thermodynamics does not say we are moving towards more disorder. That's not what the second law of thermodynamics says.
What does it say?
It says that the entropy increases, and entropy means something very specific here.
Right,
so if you're going to invoke a physical law, you have to use the definition as pertains to the physical law. You can't just make up some colloquial definition and pretend it applies to the physical law. It just doesn't work that way.
Webster dictionary, maybe.
Webster is not a physics textbook.
I would highly doubt that Webster's dictionary is colloquial, my friend.
It literally is. Webster's dictionary is not prescriptive. It's descriptive of how it's used in everyday communication.
Right. So people in your position,
everyday communication, not in a technical sense, by people in the field.
Arguing your point to obfuscate it for an argument against.
This isn't obfuscation. This is just using the words as they're meant by the law of physics.
It is 100% obfuscation.
It's obfuscation to use the words as they're intended to by the law of physics as stated.
As intended, and you're
arguing not using them as intended. You're using a layperson definition, which actually obfuscates what's really going on.
If I say the sky is blue and you say no, it's baby blue, which one of us is right?
I would say that's a subjective opinion. Like,
correct.
This is not subjective. This is not subjective. The second law of thermodynamics has a very specific meaning when it says entropy increases. It means something very specific. It does not just mean disorder increases.
So rewind. Let's put it another way. Would you say that you would have more order at the beginning of the universe and less order now, or the inverse?
Yeah. No, the universe is less orderly on the net.
Right.
On the net.
I'm giving you an answer, and you keep interrupting. So
that wasn't a question.
No, I'm making a statement, and
okay.
You keep on the net. So if you're saying that there's less order, if you're talking about the vast emptiness and considering that to be less order, I would argue that, okay, sure, if you want to call it that, but if you look at every single solar system that seems to work in harmony, that seems to move it with complete cohesion in the laws of gravity and universe, we are having more order and more complexity and more harmony.
I'm glad you feel that way, but that's just, we don't measure order or entropy based off of vibes of how things look. We quantify it, and we can actually just calculate that the entropy of the universe has increased since the observable universe. It's wildly larger. Yeah.
I will. I know. I'm sure you have a donation here, and this is probably.
I don't have a donation. Don't worry.
No, whatever I can do to contribute to your. Do me a favor. I want to pose a challenge for you.
Okay.
And I'll do whatever I can to help promote this. I want you to. I know that you've stopped talking to him, but I want you to have a conversation with Vor. I know he came onto one of you guys' lives, and I know that you've had a history with not communicating with him for whatever reason.
Because he lied. He lied openly in front of hundreds of thousands of people. That's why.
About what?
And then I called him out for it, and he doubled down. He lied about a video. He deceptively edited a video to make a woman appear like she was saying something that she wasn't saying. In fact, the opposite of what she was saying. That's why I don't talk to him anymore, because he's dishonest.
Do you have proof of this?
Yes, I made a video. I made a video about it and called him out on it.
Is it on your thing?
Yeah.
No, I'm saying to where I can conclusively see what he's.
Yes, I have his clips. I have the original video. I play it in the original order. Yes, it's. You can go watch it yourself. It's on my debunking playlist.
Gotcha. So now that we've digressed in the conversation so much into definition, right? That I have to sit here and go back and we have this conversation back and forth about what it is and what it's not, and your definition scientifically at the end of the day, we still have the question of emotion. What place do emotions serve in a less orderly universe?
The evolution is a process by which systems go from low entropy to high entropy. Biological objects, biological organisms, are entropy producing machines. And so emotions are just one tool in increasing entropy.
They're superfluous 100%. Based on your theory.
Wait, sorry for interrupting you at the middle of my sentence. Did you hear what I said at the end?
You've interrupted me about 100 times. So
did you hear what I said at the end?
No, I was too busy interrupting you. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So organisms are very efficient devices for increasing the entropy of the universe, and evolution is the process by which organisms make themselves more efficient, which thereby makes them more efficient increasers of entropy. And so emotions, it happens to be, is one particularly useful evolutionary tool towards survival, at least for social species.
But how does survive? I could actually prove to you right now that emotions work in the opposite of survival.
Yeah, so social species rely on social cues in order to interact with and convey, various ideas to each other in a perhaps pre-verbal way. The ability to express and therefore the ability to feel various things and react in various ways would be very useful for communicating pre-language.
So if you and I were best friends, we're out walking and we're taking a hike together, we're just sightseeing in Glacier National Park, and a bear attacks you, not me. Mm-hmm. Better for me to run or turn around and help you?
I guess it depends on the scenario, right?
No, it doesn't.
I mean, if you have like a Glock on you, yeah, it does.
Surviving while the bear is attacking you.
So fortunately, evolution doesn't care about individual survivability. Evolution doesn't care about individual survivability. It cares about the species survivability.
You're speaking to the nature of evolution in a linear way, proving that it is better. This is why emotions have arisen. I'm asking you a very simple question.
It's irrelevant.
In the moment, what is my higher probability of survival? Me protecting
for your survival? Probably for you to just run away, but it depends on how fast you can run, I guess. But that has nothing to do with the evolutionary argument, because evolution is not about... No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because single individual survival has nothing to do with evolution. Evolution has to do with the entire species survival. So our species would be more likely to survive if you helped me, rather than just fleeing yourself.
Negative. It's a very isolated and very personal or subjective statement, I think.
No, this is something that you can just test. You can model like altruistic behavior, and in social species, altruistic behavior increases survivability. It increases fitness, evolutionary fitness.
I would disagree. I would think this.
You should go read evolutionary biology papers then.
Well, I can't even make my statement without you every 10 seconds interrupting me, and then you have the
It is my live.
With all the question why I interrupted you.
It is my live.
Sure. But do you want to have a fair debate or one that's just covered in you interrupting and then complaining when someone interrupts you?
I mean, look, if you're going to bring up something irrelevant, I will interrupt you. So don't bring up something irrelevant. Anyway, if you want to talk about something relevant, go ahead.
I keep trying.
By all means.
Okay, perfect. So we can argue the finer points of altruistic behavior studied in the past 10,000 years, right? My point to you is, again, you stated that you feel it's better for me in that moment, and my survivability rate is better, or my chances and probability of surviving are better if I turn and run. Did you not say that? Yes or no?
Oh, is that the point that you were going to make?
That was the point that I'm going to make.
Okay.
Look, if you
So no, I knew exactly that was the point you're going to make, and you're not understanding how evolutionary biology works, and you're not understanding how altruism works in social species.
I'm asking you a very simple question, and you're just evading.
No, so you're incorrect. That kind of behavior would not lead to more more evolutionary fitness in a social species.
That's not what I asked, young man. I asked you in this isolated scenario.
Young man.
You stated that my probability of survival is greater if I turn and run.
Your individual probability, sure.
Correct. So it would stand to reason that emotions in that particular scenario do not benefit me and do not seem to benefit. And I can find many other occasions in which they wouldn't benefit the overall species and betterment or longevity of a species. There doesn't seem to be a fit. You can manufacture something for your audience, but not for me. They do seem to be very designed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you should just go read some evolutionary biology literature. This is super well studied. How social species, and in fact, we see this in tons of other social species too, by the way, like emotions and altruistic behavior and things like that. This is just super well studied. That the fact that altruistic behavior, that conveying things via, facial or body language, like fear and like sadness, joy, these are all beneficial things, super well studied and well established in the evolutionary biology literature. So like the whole notion that like, oh, one individual's survival in one particular scenario would be decreased by being altruistic is completely irrelevant for the question of evolutionary fitness of an entire species, which is what we're talking about here. We're not talking about at the individual level because that's not relevant for a social species. Which is what. And
I'm arguing the point that I think that you're trying to force feed that this is the overall, this is contributing to the overall longevity of a species. I disagree with you.
You're disagreeing with me, and then all of the evolutionary biologists.
Yeah. And I could make the argument that you're disagreeing with me and all of the theological evidence supporting Jesus. And
I'm fine disagreeing with that. Are you fine disagreeing with all of the evolutionary biologists?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, but now you're just rejecting it. You're just rejecting like the scientific process, right?
No.
I mean, if you accept the scientific process, then you would accept the conclusions of that scientific process, right?
You give me a swirling coffee explanation. A swirling coffee.
That was an analogy.
A swirling coffee and creamer hardly equate to the symbiosis of me, a completely separate organism having lungs that work in absolute harmony with trees.
Why are we moving the goalpost now? Seems like you're pivoting a little bit.
Pivoting.
The swirling coffee was an analogy to help you understand the point that I was trying to make. The point about evolutionary biology that I'm talking about is well studied and well substantiated in the literature. The swirling coffee thing was an analogy to help, like you said, dumb it down for you.
It was a poor analogy.
Equivocating it to. Did you understand what I meant?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, then it did its job.
But can I not disagree with it? Can I not say that I think it's?
You can disagree with it. I used the analogy to convey a particular idea, and you understood it, so it did its job.
Again, before you, and I think you're very well versed at this because you do lives every day, so you're good at interrupting at moments of revelation. So, as I've stated to you in the past, the way that the universe works seems to be in perfect harmony. You have trees that work in symbiosis nature with my lungs. You have the entire planet works as a cohesive, designed organism that is far from entropy or increased entropy. And your claim is that, oh, well, the rest of the universe shows entropy in other areas.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Sure. What do you think increases entropy? What do you think has?
Can I interrupt you? No, is that?
What do you think has a higher entropy system? A nuclear power plant and the city that it feeds, or a bunch of cavemen, killing a deer and then heating it on an open fire? Which system do you think has higher entropy?
Which has higher entropy? Nuclear power plants in the city that it provides energy to?
Yeah. So in fact, the development of human society has increased the entropy of the world, not decreased it.
I would say they're probably about the same entropy.
You'd be wildly wrong by orders of magnitude.
Okay, explain.
Electricity usage and generally energy usage is the way that entropy gets produced. So the more electricity, the more power, either whether it's a plant taking in sunlight and then converting it to energy to growth and then dying and being decomposed, or whether it's a human society using the radiation from uranium rods to heat their homes, whatever it is, when you use energy, that energy gets converted, not literally, but there's a way to do this. That energy gets converted to entropy. The faster you use energy, the more entropy you produce more quickly.
Okay. So on a timeline, again, on a timeline from the, let me ask you a better question. Do you believe that the Big Bang happened? Or can you conclusively prove that it happened?
I mean, you can't conclusively prove anything, but we have very strong evidence that it did.
Okay. And there's nowhere in the scientific community right now where that theory and hypothesis is breaking down?
I haven't seen any papers about it.
Okay. So on a timeline, obviously the ground zero being the birth of the universe at the air quotes Big Bang till now, you're saying there's more entropy.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Wildly more, by like 50 orders of magnitude more.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to disagree, my friend. And
okay. Then you're just disagreeing with math at that point. Like that's. Yeah. Like, we can just calculate the entropy in the universe now. We can calculate how much it was back then. Back then is much lower than it is now. The math doesn't lie here.
In my opinion, it does. And in my opinion, you're living in a designed universe that
math doesn't care about your opinion.
You're living in a designed universe that clearly shows the intelligence of a creator.
Okay, brother. If you have to deny math to make your belief work, I'm not going to stop you, bro. Have a good one.
It's not. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I get your point about more entropy. My point is we should see less complex systems. Period.
Sorry, that's not what the math says. Have a good one, bro. All right, let's bring up the next guest. Remember, if you like watching this, if you like what I'm doing, consider I will be mildly and temporarily unemployed for a few months, starting next month. So consider supporting, because that would make my life easier. All right, let's talk to our next guest. How's it going? Oh, they're not here yet.
Hello?
How's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you all right. How's it going?
Hi, how you doing? You can hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Perfect. Okay, so I just want to say off the bat that I like your content, especially like the cosmology stuff and the physics stuff. It's very interesting. I study philosophy a little bit.
Okay.
I think you'll find me to be a little bit of I guess you could say a different guest than what you're usually used to. I'm a Muslim, I'm not a Christian, so there might be a shift in paradigm between our beliefs and their beliefs. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about was yesterday I was tuning into the live and I was also waiting in line, but I didn't get the chance to make it on. But the problem of evil, and I did write like a short dissertation for one of my classes about the problem of evil and how at least the philosophical reconciliation and the theological reconciliation.
Sure.
So if you mind, I'd like to share that.
Are you going to read your whole thesis?
No, it's even if I did, it's only like 2 pages or 3 pages. But in a nutshell, basically.
Okay, yeah. Summarize it for me. Give me the argument for the or give me the theodicy.
So basically, the problem of evil, you would say, is that that the existence of evil. Would you say it would refute the existence of a God that because when I was listening to you talk yesterday, you were saying that the 3 problems, or this might have been pertaining only to the Epicurean paradox, but you said the three main characteristics of God that are refuted by the problem of evil is that all powerful, all powerful, all good and loving, and what was the third one?
All knowing.
All knowing, right? Okay. So yeah, based on that, our conception of, or at least the philosophical proof, right? So I'll tell you the philosophical reasoning for the existence of evil before I bring in the theology. But
yeah. So by the way, to be clear, my primary argument for the problem of evil was not the logical problem of evil, but the evidential problem of evil.
Could you describe that for me?
The evidential problem of evil is basically, I mean, I could just read to you the premises. It's written up on the Stanford Encyclopedia if you want. But essentially, it's in a universe created by an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God, we would not expect there to be gratuitous evil, but we observe gratuitous evil, which makes the all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God less likely.
Okay, I understand. So how would that argument change if, as Muslims, we don't believe in an all-loving God that everybody is entitled to God to love?
It doesn't apply to you then if you don't believe in an all-loving God.
Okay. Yeah, because we believe, our conception is that, God, he loves who's deserving of his love. And that there are people like, people who are, obviously sinners or arrogant or disbelievers who God does not love. And
if you don't think God loves everybody, then it doesn't apply to you.
Okay. So, I don't know really. So would you still have any moral arguments against a religion like this one?
Well, yeah, I mean, I depending on, I guess it depends on which texts you believe. Some Muslims will affirm certain things, some Muslims won't. But generally, if it seems like if you find, I believe that there's a statement like if you find something wrong or some reason not to believe the Quran, then the whole thing should fall apart. And it seems like giving your divine message to a man who married a 6-year-old is a pretty good reason not to believe the book.
Oh, okay, yeah, we could talk about this. So,
I mean, not all Muslims accept that she was 6. Some say that she was like 19 or something.
The betrothal was put in place when she was 6 years old, and the consummation was at the age of 9, according to the most authentic reports.
Right. So, and I think that generally speaking, like if you have to rely on a man who consummated a marriage with a 9-year-old as your divine messenger, I think that that's a good reason not to trust the book.
Okay, I understand your critique. Yeah, I'm very, very used to this argument. We handle it all the time. So, first things first, as an atheist, where exactly is your moral standard in terms of this age of consent thing? Because it seems like it's kind of a very, very recent development because for 99% of human civilization, once a woman is pubescent, that means she's been ready for marriage or other things. Now, Islam obviously stipulates that there's 3 conditions for marriage: mental maturity, physical maturity, and consent, right? And so if somebody meets those three requirements, then the marriage is considered permissible in Islam. But
yeah, so we know neurologically speaking that children will not be mentally mature by the age of 9.
That's not conclusive.
It absolutely is. The prefrontal cortex doesn't finish developing until you're around 25 to 30.
So then you would actually criticize the age of consent being 18 as also being immoral?
In principle, you could suggest, and I think that there's good reason to think this, that the age of consent should be higher. Yes. So then you would actually argue against basically the whole of society, not just a particular religious. I mean, like I would say that the age of consent being 18 is 1,000 times better than it being 9. But I would say that the age of consent being 25 would probably be better than it being 18. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely would make that statement.
Okay, and you're making the moral claim.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, okay. Let me rephrase. That's not a moral claim. That's a normative claim of the age of consent, about where we should put the age of consent based off of what we know about neurobiology.
No, but that would require you assigning a moral value to.
No, it's just a normative
something
claim.
Is better.
It doesn't have to have like neutral value. I'm just making a normative claim that we should let our actions be guided by scientific processes or something like that.
No, but the value that you're putting on it is that if you are somebody who's putting your morality based on scientific premises, you are saying that if something is good scientifically for you, or something extends your life or improves your health, and that means it is morally good to do. And that's a moral framework.
No, that's not the claim I'm making. Not all normative claims are moral.
No, but if you're saying one thing is better than the other, that's a moral claim.
If I say that pizza is better than tacos, that's not a moral claim. That's a normative claim.
Well, I mean, that's in terms of subjectivity. But I mean, if you want to say that it's subjective, that you believe that
it's just a normative claim. That's all. Like
whether
you think it's subjective or objective, the point is it's normative. It's a prescription for how things should be. It could be based on morals. It could be based on other things. It could be based on preferences. It could be based on certain like ideals. It could be based on a whole bunch of things. It doesn't have not all normative claims are moral.
No problem. I digress. So in either case, you did make a moral claim in regards to somebody who does this shouldn't be trusted, or somebody who does this.
Yeah. I wouldn't trust somebody who does that. Yeah.
Okay, that's your opinion.
Maybe
and,
you would.
You're more than welcome to have it. But one thing that is worth mentioning is that, yes, of course, nowadays, absolutely everybody would be abhorred by, the marriage of somebody at that age or younger or around that age or anything like that. But that's once again presentism, because that's a present moral standard or societal standard, because if you look, that was 1,400 years ago.
Do morals change?
No.
Okay, so morals are... So if morals change, then would you say that our
no.
standard
Societal morals change. Societal morals.
I'm sorry. So would you say that it is... Has it ever been socially... Or has it ever been moral to sleep with a 9-year-old?
Yeah, if she's met all the requirements for marriage, yeah.
And as we've demonstrated, there are no such thing as 9-year-olds that are mentally mature, right?
Mentally mature to your standard.
No, well, I mean biologically mentally mature.
But that's not the standard that Islam uses. Not biological. Because if it was biological mental maturity...
But she isn't equipped to make a decision, right? Like, we know that biologically. She isn't equipped to know the consequences of her actions. She isn't equipped to know the long-term consequences of her actions, right?
No, I mean that's on at that point. There's not a conclusive. You don't know what you're doing, or you know what you're doing.
Well, no, when you're 9 years old, you absolutely
now you could say absolutely
your
decision-making faculties are going to be more developed later on. But either way, the mental maturity part, mostly what it means is, in terms of Islamic definition, is that they are aware of the things they say, and they're aware of consequences, and they're aware of the things they do have consequences. And either way, if she had ever...
So to be clear, you do... do you think that it would be morally acceptable for you to marry a 9-year-old so long as they were, quick on their feet, clever, they said the right things, and they were physically developed?
Well, things have changed in terms of...
Sorry, I asked about moral objectively from a moral perspective.
I didn't say the morals change. I didn't say the morals change.
I'm asking... Okay, so morally, is it acceptable?
Well, if you let me finish my answer. What I'm saying is that nowadays, especially back then when the average life expectancy was 30 to 35 years old, people were... And you can check the biology on this, because I'm sure you're well versed. Physical maturity happened at an earlier age, depending on the environmental factors.
No, that's false.
Sorry?
Boys and girls reached puberty much later than we do today, actually.
When you're saying back then they
yes,
later.
So you can just measure this. You can measure the average age of puberty onset in children, and it's been going down with time, not up.
And you're saying it's in all environments,
in all cases, yeah. And the reason is because basically we have more access to food.
Okay, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but again, that's not...
Wait, yes, you do. You literally said just a second ago that you did. You said the opposite just a second ago.
What'd you say?
You said the opposite just a second ago. So you definitely do disagree with it.
Wait, you're saying that I'm disagreeing with that people matured faster.
Yeah, well, no, people hit puberty later back then.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. You're saying that the average for all time, it has been increasing, or it has been decreasing. Sorry.
Yes, significantly. The average age is as low as I'm pulling up a chart right now. 11 or 12 now, whereas 300 years ago, it was 13, 14, 15.
Okay, I mean,
in fact, as recently as 175 years ago in Norway, the average age that a girl would start her period was when she was 17.
Okay, but Norway has different environmental factors than Saudi Arabia.
This is all across North America and Europe. There's basically a linear trend downwards towards a younger age of puberty onset amongst women.
They didn't exist in North America and Europe. It was along the equator in Saudi Arabia, and that's what I mean.
My point is that this is a general. I mean, we could look in other places too, in other countries. That was just the first chart that I looked at. But this is a general trend that the more access to food you have, the sooner your puberty onsets.
Okay, I mean, look, if I grant that. That still doesn't change the fact that in her own report, right, the report in which she says the betrothal was at 6 and the consummation was at 9 years old, she says that the consummation was not until I had become a woman, until I had reached adulthood. So, regardless of
so
the average
she could have had precocious puberty, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, so that's what I'm saying.
But that was not the norm, by no means.
Okay, that's fine. And you know what? Actually, our data actually, like, not our data rather, but our record shows that, when people bring up this, this qualm about, the marriage of Aisha, radiallahu anha, that she was 9 years old. What people don't know is that over the life of the Prophet, he was married to 11 women. He married 11 women over the course of his life. And of those 11 women,
that's not great.
10 of them, I'm sorry?
It's not great. It doesn't really line up with my values.
Okay, I'm not worried about your moral claims, but thank you. Out of those 11, 10 of them were either divorcees or widows.
Okay.
10 of them. So the vast majority of them. So if you want to make a claim about, the Prophet's prerogative or his attraction towards this and that, then the overwhelming majority of his wives were divorcees and widows. His first wife, who is said to be one of his most beloved wives, was 15 years older than him. So
yeah. So if let's say that you had a string of girlfriends, right? Normal thing for you seem like a kind of young guy. You have a string of girlfriends, and then one of your girlfriends is 9. Would someone be correct to call you a pedophile?
Right now, yeah, probably.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter how many older women he married. Like what?
No. But if the claim is that, right, that it's pedophilia or something like that. Now, number one, we can't even. It's not even falsifiable that she was actually prepubescent, because according to the same report where she says she was 9, that people have to bring up.
So I care less about her actual physical maturity, and I care more about her ability to consent.
Look, can you, like, either way, if you want to talk about your present morals in what was you could say your morals that are developed and derived from the society around you, or from your emotions, or from your feelings. Can you prove that because here's the thing, back then, 1,400 years ago, not a single, and the Prophet had many, many enemies, the Romans, the Persians, the pagans, the Jewish tribes, they had many enemies. Not a single one of them ever criticized his marriage to Aisha, because back then it was socially acceptable. It was normal.
I don't really care.
Okay, so could you prove that if you lived 1,400 years ago, that you would somehow find the moral clarity to criticize that marriage just from your own? Or do you think that you would probably accept the societal status quo?
Let's just say I can. Yeah, I can, because I know my mind better than anybody on the planet. Yep.
Okay.
I'm the authority on my mental state, right?
I'm sorry, what?
I am the authority on my mental state.
Okay, but that's the thing. If you want to say that you would know better, based on what you're learning right now, or not rather what you're learning, but based on what you're claiming right now, you are applying the present day standards that you derived from your society and your emotions or your feelings or whatever. There's no reasons for us to believe that somehow that you wouldn't accept the then
How do you know where I get my morals from?
Modern. I'm sorry, what?
How do you know where I get my moral standards from?
Well, you're a self-proclaimed atheist, so it has to be something subjective or relative. So.
No, it doesn't. There are atheists who hold moral objectivism.
Of course it is.
No,
of course it. No. You guys don't have an objective standard.
There are plenty of objective standards that atheists can hold.
No. There are objective things like science, but your choice to apply science into your moral.
No, there are objective standards that atheists can hold. Like you could be like a Platonist. You could be like an emotivist. You could be like this weird thing that Ian does, but I don't know what it's called. Like some empathetic, like transcendental empathic transcendentalism, which is like another objective moral standard.
Yeah, but that's the thing. All of those moral standards are based on your
No, they're not.
The empathetic.
Have you even like ran into or heard about like objective moral standards given by atheists? Have you encountered that at all?
Yeah, none of them are objective.
Have you? Can you describe any of them?
Yeah, it's something like, I'm a secular humanist, and I believe that whatever is best for humans is moral. I'm sorry, what?
That's not any of the ones that I just mentioned.
No, because if the ones that you mentioned, I haven't heard of before.
Okay, yeah. So you should go look in an actual like the philosophical literature. And because you said that you're inclined to do philosophy, go look into the philosophical literature of objective moral standards or objective moral positions that are given by atheists, because tons of them exist.
Okay, I want to hear yours. Just so that we can see
I'm not a moral objectivist, but they do exist.
Oh, so you're not a moral objectivist?
I'm not even a moral. I don't even know if I'm a moral subjectivist either, for that matter. I'm in some sense like I kind of lean towards quietism.
So then how do you find the goal to make any moral judgments or moral? It's just actually, you're right. It was just as you said. You said, I personally don't like that. And what I should have responded was, okay, thank you for your opinion. but that doesn't really disprove somebody's prophethood or God.
Well, no, but see, it does, right? Because if God had actually sent a messenger to try to convince everybody, knowing, because he does know everything, knowing that his messenger would be viewed as abhorrent 1,600 years later, he made a bad choice.
Really? Because I don't know. I mean, Islam is the second largest religion, and it's currently on the incline, and it's set to be the largest religion by 2050. So it doesn't seem like he really made a mistake.
I mean, the point is if the goal is to spread the message as widely and as quickly as possible, making the messenger an abhorrent human being seems like a bad idea.
Once again, your opinion, which again you said is completely worthless. But anyways,
I said that. Did I?
Well, in essence, it's worthless because it's not really based on objectivity, and you agree that it's relative. So in any case,
no, this is a judgment of God's decision-making ability. In fact, this is
your
critique.
judgment, your subjective
critique.
judgment.
No, there's nothing.
This is not an internal critique. This is not an internal critique.
No, it absolutely is. If God was all-knowing and all-powerful, then it seems implausible, meaning that we have low credence in the position that he would give his message to be spread to somebody that would be viewed poorly in the future.
No, but how's that an internal critique if it's not something that we internally view as something poor? That's not an internal critique.
Sorry,
that's a critique.
No, it's an internal. I mean, you agree that Muhammad is not viewed well amongst people who are not Muslims, right?
Not really. No, I mean, like a lot of people. I mean, issue.
So maybe you just haven't talked to a lot of non-Muslims.
No, I do. I've talked to a lot. I give da'wah. I do a lot of outreach. But
I mean, because when you do that, have you told people, oh yeah, Muhammad married a 6-year-old and had sex with her when she was 9? Have you told them that? Or do you just hide that? Because it would make sense if you would hide that, because it's pretty disgusting.
That's not hiding. It's not hiding. It's just not.
It's lying by omission.
Religion. We don't give the biography of the prophet.
It's lying by omission.
When we preach tawhid, which is belief in monotheism, and we preach the 5 daily. So
if you're not embarrassed by it, why don't you teach it?
Because there's other things that need to be learned first. We don't teach people the biography.
So you'd rather trick people into becoming Muslim before they learn that.
I absolutely never trick anybody who brings this problem to me. I always talk to them about it. I don't have we're not ashamed.
Yeah, but you never bring it up. You never start with that because you know it's disgusting, right?
Nope.
Oh, so it's not disgusting.
Like you're trying to. I don't know why you're trying to project your moral views onto me and myself.
Do you? Look, so wait, hold on. You don't share those moral views? You don't think that's disgusting? Sleeping with a 9-year-old?
No, bro. Look. At the time, it was completely socially acceptable.
Bro is losing the rhetorical battle so bad.
Are you gonna let me finish?
You can if you want, bro.
Okay, thank you. And so, like I said, I have the wisdom to understand that what was socially acceptable now is different than what was socially acceptable back then. And was it moral? Of course. There's no problem. We don't have a problem because she met those conditions. Now, would it be moral now? Well, we have laws that we have to follow, whether the laws of the land. And by the way, in most Middle Eastern countries, the age of consent, or rather, age of marriage is 18 or higher. And now, if you want to ask me why did they do that, I don't know. It's not my business how they run their countries. But the idea here is that the moral claim that you're making that he is this and he is that doesn't have weight. And even if you see it that way and you think it's disgusting or abhorrent, that still does not disprove divinity or prophethood. It doesn't.
So you didn't understand. So to be clear, by the way, this is interesting. And I can find a source for this if you'd like. But it looks like there are no age of consent laws in Saudi Arabia or what country is that? Is that
Kuwait?
That's Qatar. No, it's Kuwait. It's not Kuwait because Kuwait borders Iraq, right? Kuwait actually has an age of consent of 18. I can go find a better chart though if you'd like. But the point is that there is no age of consent in Saudi Arabia.
Because there's age of marriage, not age of consent.
Wait, so why isn't there an age of consent?
Because there's no such thing as having sex outside of marriage in these countries. It's not recognized. So they say age of marriage instead.
Wait, but don't you need to be a certain age in order to consent to marriage?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
it's not Yemen. Yemen is in the southwest of Saudi Arabia.
The last time I looked it up, I believe the age of marriage was 18 in Saudi Arabia.
So
I could be wrong about that.
In Iran, the minimum legal age for marriage is 13. In Iraq, I believe they just lowered it to 9.
Okay, well, it's a good thing that I'm a Muslim and not an Iraqist. I don't really. Iraq is not really.
I mean, Iraq and Iran are the two largest countries in the Middle East, are they not?
Yeah, and they have the highest majority of Shias too. So like, what's your point?
Okay, so if you, I mean, I guess if you disagree with them, but that said, you are the one defending Muhammad's consummation with a 9-year-old. So I don't know why you have a problem with this.
I'm not saying I have a problem. You're the one who's framing it like I have a problem with it. I just look.
Well, no. Why would you have a problem with countries in the Middle East having an age of consent that was 9?
Did I have a problem? I didn't say I had a problem.
Okay, so you would not have a problem if countries in the Middle East lowered the age of consent to 9 or the age of marriage to 6.
Look, the only 3 conditions that need to be.
Would you have a problem with that?
The only 3 conditions is the mental maturity, physical maturity, and consent. I have no.
Wait. Did you say consent? How old do they have to be to consent?
It's not a static.
Can a 1-year-old consent?
I'm sorry, what?
Can a 1-year-old consent?
Probably not, because of probably won't have the other conditions fulfilled either.
I didn't ask about the other conditions. Can a 5-year-old consent?
Well, the conditions need to be taken in summation.
I'm just asking about one of the 3 conditions.
Well, I mean, how are you going to consent if you don't have the physical or mental maturity that kind of precedes the consenting part?
Wait, so can a 5-year-old consent or no? Is it
No.
possible for a 5-year-old to consent?
No, probably not.
Is it possible for a 6-year-old to consent?
No, probably not.
Okay, so then how could Aisha consent to marriage?
Because by the time of the consummation, that's when the consent is given.
Wait, so she didn't consent to be married?
The betrothal at 6 was by her father, Abu Bakr. And just so you know, she was actually betrothed even before the Prophet married her. She was actually betrothed to somebody else. And so that's even further proof.
Is that better? Do you think that makes it better?
Not that it makes it better, but it's proof that it shows how it was societally acceptable. And this is part of the society at the time.
Slavery was societally acceptable. That doesn't make it okay.
Yeah, until Islam came and changed it, but yeah.
Islam didn't change it. What? There's still slavery in parts of the Islamic world.
Parts of the Islamic world. It's not. I'm not ideologically.
In what sense did Islam change that? In what sense is Islam responsible for getting rid of slavery?
I'm sorry, what?
In what sense is Islam responsible for getting rid of slavery?
Of course, it prohibited capturing slaves who were not from war. The only slaves you were allowed to capture.
Oh, so you're allowed to take slaves if you win in war.
Okay, so let's talk about the Islamic history, because I know you don't know more than me about Islamic history. I'm not saying that.
I just know more about moral values, I guess.
Okay. So if you'd let me finish, because I want to clarify this.
Go ahead.
If you let me finish, I want to clarify this point on your alleged slavery. So, in Islam, and we have authentic reports from the Prophet Islam. He said, nobody is allowed to take a free person and make them a slave. The only people you can enslave is the opposing army, which you turn into prisoners of war.
And then turn them into slaves, right?
So what define slave? Because there's different connotations of slavery. If you're thinking of something like a transatlantic slavery, no, that's incorrect. Because
somebody who cannot choose to leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then how did Islam get rid of slavery?
Because it regulated it. The traditional
regulating slavery is allowing slavery.
No, not that slavery. Because their slavery was taking.
That's a type of slavery that is being allowed.
Okay, call it indentured servitude. You could say that
it's not indentured servitude. Indentured servitude is voluntary. Indentured servitude is voluntary.
No. Slaves.
Indentured servitude is when you sell your own rights away to work for somebody for a period of time. That's what indentured servitude is.
If you want to play the semantics game, then we could say that they indentured themselves.
Semantics. You said that Islam got rid of slavery, and they absolutely didn't. They just regulated it.
No, but the whole point is that the regulation is what kind of moved it away from the colloquial sense of slavery, because now you're thinking of transatlantic slavery.
I'm thinking of all forms of slavery throughout all of history.
So when I said Islam got rid of slavery, and I'll correct myself.
You just lied, right? When you said
no, I didn't lie. No, I didn't lie.
Well, you did.
So if you let me
because
finish.
they didn't get rid of slavery, they still had
So
slavery.
if you let me finish. The slavery that was present at the time was done away with. And so okay, so are you going to say that taking a prisoner of war or somebody who does a crime and you imprison them, that's enslaving them?
Yes, literally it is. If you make them work anyway.
So you're opposed to all imprisonment. Anybody who's a criminal, you don't believe that they should go to prison?
Imprisonment can be fine, but forced labor is not.
Wait, so you could hold people in prison, but you can't make them work?
Yes.
You believe that's
Yes.
what you believe? Okay, yep. I disagree. So
you're just fine with slavery?
Not your conception of slavery.
Slavery being forced labor that you can't leave? What do you mean by slavery?
Is that your entire?
That's what slavery is.
Is that your entire conception of slavery?
That's just what the word means.
No, because slavery comes with certain auxiliary, or rather peripheral assumptions, such as that person is whipped or chained, and that they have to eat from garbage, and they have to sleep with bugs or in the mud or whatever.
That's some connotation that you're using. So here is a definition of slave from Oxford languages. A person who is forced to do work for and obey another and is considered to be their property, an enslaved person. Another definition, a person who works very hard without proper remuneration or appreciation.
In that case, we're not allowed to call them property. As a matter of fact, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, we call them what your right hand possesses, milk yamin is the Arabic term. The people who are basically who you beat them in battle and now they serve you. The Prophet said you can't say that they're your property because everybody belongs to God. So if that's your case, then no.
Could you sell them?
Yes.
Okay, then they're your property. That's just the language game.
Because you could sell it, it's your property.
Yeah,
no,
you can only sell things that are yours.
No, you could sell contracts. So, for example, if you have a
contract that you wrote, that you own.
No, not a contract that you wrote. A contract that you could have acquired through real estate or something else.
Yeah, that you then own. That's what it means to sell it because you own it.
No, the contract.
This is so dishonest. You can sell them, but it's not your property.
So I think you're getting caught up in the semantics. When I say my property,
you're the one who says, well, Allah technically said that you can't call them your property because everybody belongs to God. No, if you could sell them, then you own them.
Okay, so even if I grant that we own them, all right, that's fine. If you want to say we own them because we call them something, you call them something else, fine. If you want to grant that we own them, I don't have a problem with that. What's the moral problem with somebody who came to kill you? You now own them.
I tend to not like slavery. Do you like slavery?
Oh, do you like somebody coming to kill you? Do you like somebody coming to kill you? Is that better?
Was Muhammad waging a defensive war?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
So did he take slaves during his offensive campaign? Or did he and his followers take slaves during the offensive campaign?
Well, I mean, his offensive campaign. I mean, it gets dicey because yes, he fought an offensive campaign against the Romans and the Persians.
Well, he was invading places, right? There's a reason why the caliphate existed. Why
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
An enormous area.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
There's a reason why the caliphate was enormous, and it wasn't because they just wandered in and said, "Hey, you guys want to join?"
I mean, that did happen. No, they did send missionaries first.
Probably occasionally, but there's a reason why Muhammad was known as a warlord.
Okay, and I disagree with those. I disagree with those labels. But in any case, the standard operating procedure, you could say, of Muslims in wartime was they would tell a country or they would tell a land that we want to send our messengers, or rather our missionaries, to your land to preach the message of Islam. And you could either allow our missionaries to go and do work. We're not going to go and force anybody to convert or anything. We're going to allow our missionaries to go, or we will come with an army. And so the places that allowed the missionaries, they didn't get conquered. The places that refused, they did get conquered.
Okay, and did they take slaves when they did the conquering?
They took prisoners of war from the people who fought, and then
they became slaves, right? Yeah. So they threatened a group, invaded that group, killed many of them, took others as slaves. Yeah, I would say that's immoral. Absolutely. And I think any reasonable person would.
Okay, but like I said, you don't know anything about what Islamic servitude is, right? And so
we agreed that they are forced to work, they can't choose to leave, and they are your property. That makes them a slave.
Yeah, and I honestly have no problem if they battled you and they fought you and they would have killed you if you didn't kill them. And as a matter of fact, if you lost
when you start the war, you're the bad person
you as slaves and probably treated you a lot worse than anything else.
When you start the war, you're the bad person. Sorry.
No, but starting. No, not always.
Would you say that starting a war is generally bad?
Depends on what it's for. Why you started the war?
Because they didn't want to let your people into their territory.
Okay, then yeah. I don't think any Muslim or the Islamic or not the Islamic Caliphate, because obviously they don't all stand in. They don't all have like divine guidance. But wars that the Prophet started, they weren't immoral.
Wait a minute. So you think that if a group, let's say of a nation state, they don't want you to send any of your people into their territory. And then
missionaries.
they get
Free trade.
invaded as a result.
Missionaries. No.
It doesn't matter who they are. If they don't want you coming in, is that justification for invasion?
Okay, so here's the thing. It's not like these were isolationist places. These were places that allowed free trade.
It doesn't matter. If they don't want you coming in, is that justification for invasion?
So if you let me finish. If there are people who, generally speaking, don't have, they allow free trade, they allow merchants to come in, they allow people, but they have a aggression or abrasion towards your religion, and they say, no, we don't want the Muslims because we have our idols, and we don't want to allow your people to come preach your monotheism to us. Then, yeah, we send our soldiers, and we say, prepare for battle.
You think that's justified?
We're going to be conquered.
You think that's justified?
Yeah.
What's your country, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in America right now.
Okay, you're in America. If I don't know.
Or no. How about this? I'm actually
Russia,
Palestinian. I'm Palestinian.
Okay, great. You're Palestinian. If the Israelites came in, if the Israelis came in, and they said, yeah, if you guys don't let us send our Jewish proselytizers into Gaza and into the West Bank and onto the Temple Mount, if you don't let us do that, we're going to invade you. Would that be justified?
Yeah, which is why we did allow Jews to live in Palestine.
Why aren't Jews allowed on the Temple Mount then?
You said what? Jews aren't allowed on the Temple Mount?
Yeah, why not?
Who said that?
You can't visit. You can't visit if you're Israeli or Jewish for that matter.
The Temple Mount. I don't know what you're because just so you know, Israel has complete control of the West Bank. They could go wherever they want. They go to our mosque.
No, but they can't. They can't. That's the thing. They can't.
What are you talking about? Yes, they can. They come to our mosque. They throw smoke.
You literally can't. You literally can't go inside. You literally can't.
What do you, I need your source, bro, because the Israelis go wherever they want.
I've talked to people who literally can't go. There's an Israeli in the comment who says, yeah, Blitz is right. You can't go.
Dude, if you're talking about Israelis being restricted travel access, it's because the Israeli authority is telling them, no, you can't go there because it's too dangerous. It's under the PA, which is the Palestinian Authority. So Palestinians, and I'll give you an example. I'll give you a historical example. When Umar ibn Khattab, who was the second caliph, when he went and conquered Palestine, right? He took it back from the Romans, and you're free to look this up. When he went and took it back from the Romans, he went and asked, "Where's all the Jews?" Right? And the Romans, who were previously occupying Palestine, they said, "Oh, we killed them and exiled them." Right? He says, "Where's the Temple Mount?" He said, "Oh, the Temple Mount, we turned it into a garbage dump. It's full of trash." Do you know what Umar ibn Khattab said? He said, go get 80 Jewish families and bring them here now because you have to have Jews on the Temple Mount. You have to have Jews in Palestine because they also have a part of this land. So Muslims, we don't have a problem with Jewish people coming to.
But wait, sorry. We ignored the entire point of my hypothetical. If Gazans, if people living in the West Bank didn't want Jews coming in for whatever reason, let's say that they had I know this isn't the world that we live in, but let's say that they had autonomy, right? They had autonomy, two-state solution, whatever. They didn't want Jews coming in for whatever reason. And they said, no, we don't want you guys coming in. Would that give Israel the right to invade and conquer those places?
Well, I think you're excluding the fact that there are laws of war to abide by. So if Israel said, okay, then we're going to send our army, the Palestinians would raise their own army and then they would fight. But Israel is just bombarding civilian infrastructure.
Would that give? I'm not talking about the current situation. Obviously, the current situation is atrocious. I'm asking, in a hypothetical, maybe 50 years down the line, 75 years down the line, hopefully the situation's settled, and Palestinians have their own autonomy, Israelis have their own autonomy. There's no conflict. Things are happy. Whatever. Let's suppose that that's the situation, and then maybe a super right-wing authoritarian religious crazy person gets in charge of Israel, and they're like, we want to send proselytizers into Palestine, and Palestine says, actually, nah, we don't want that. Would that then justify, in your eyes, the Israeli invasion of Palestine?
Yes, and we're also justified in our own defense.
That would justify Israel invading Palestine just because Palestine wouldn't want Jewish people to come in and proselytize?
Yeah, but that's the thing. In our religion, we're actually mandated to allow people of other religions to come in. We don't have a problem with that. So Islam actually tells you you're supposed to allow people to come in. There's no problem with that. But
wait a minute, hold on. Now I'm confused because if you go to Saudi Arabia and you preach another religion, won't you have a hard time?
Yes.
Okay,
because
so
that's against the law. That's blaspheming publicly.
Since when is Islam friendly towards non-Muslim proselytizers? Because remember, it's not just we.
No, they're not. Are you saying to send Jews into Palestine? Or are you saying people who preach Judaism into Palestine?
Yeah, proselytizing Jews.
Okay, then no, we would reject that.
Oh, okay, but why is it allowed?
We would say Jews are free and welcome to live here, but they're not allowed to preach.
Why is it allowed for Muslims to do that then? That they can
because
invade on the,
because from the Muslim perspective, our religion is
is
true and their religion is false.
Okay, so it's justice for me and none for thee.
No, it's because there is one higher truth, which we believe to be like if this is going to be an internal critique, you have to accept that.
This isn't an internal critique. This is just showing that your worldview is like fatally flawed, and it's
this is an internal critique
it's special pleading essentially.
No, this is an internal critique because you're saying, oh, you Muslims, you believe that it's wrong for other people, but it's good for you, and that internally contradiction. No,
I didn't say it's internally contradictory. It's hypocritical.
Justice for me, but not for thee. That's not an internal contradiction.
No, that's hypocrisy.
Okay, fine. Hypocrisy could be seen in a way. I would see hypocrisy in a way as a contradiction between your actions and your beliefs, but in either case, that's besides the point whether this is hypocrisy or not. But yeah, because.
But you would agree that then Muslim tradition, Muslim dogma is hypocritical in that regard.
Hypocritical in what regard?
In the regard that it's okay for Muslims to threaten or to force their proselytizing on other nations with the threat of violence, but it's not okay for anybody else to do that to Muslims.
Well, no, that's not a contradiction because once again,
I didn't say it's a contradiction. I said it's.
You just said, isn't that? You're right. Hypocritical.
Yeah.
And I would say no, it's not hypocritical because from the Muslim perspective, we objectively believe that our religion is objectively correct and other people are upon falsehood. So in our view, our proselytizers are bringing people to truth and their proselytizers are bringing people to falsehood. And so that's why it's not hypocrisy.
Okay, so if Jews thought the exact same thing about their position, would you understand that they're would you be like, okay, well, yeah, under their religion it's justified? Would you say that?
I mean, if under their religion it's justified, sure. I mean, but I don't really care what their religion says.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean,
imagine living this way in America. I can't believe that.
I mean, I don't know how you could not believe, and you could have all the amazement and awe and shock and and all this stuff. But once again, at the end of the day, you don't have any moral compass. You don't have any moral standard. You're somebody who just. You said earlier that you don't have objective morals.
Yeah, that doesn't mean I don't have a moral standard or a moral compass.
Okay, my fault. You have a moral compass that is overall worthless because there is nothing.
I would say your moral compass is overall worthless, as demonstrated by this whole conversation.
And once again, that would be your opinion, which obviously I can't change.
And the opinion of everybody who's watching, to be clear.
Okay, I mean, a lot of people can think a lot of things, but that's not my problem. Like, at the end of the day, truth is truth.
You're right. It isn't your problem. That's okay.
Okay, perfect. So, in either case, when I was talking about the problem of evil, I mainly wanted to talk about, from the beginning of this conversation. Well, I guess it wouldn't make sense if whatever Epicurean paradox doesn't apply really to Islam, but this whole conversation has been moral quandary after moral quandary, ironically from somebody who doesn't have an objective moral basis. So it's kind of like I feel this way about it, and that means it must be wrong.
So I mean, presumably you came on to convince me to believe in your God, right?
No. I'm not here to convince anybody.
That's what the background says.
Message, not to convince anybody.
That's what the background says.
Oh, can you convince me to believe in your God? Oh, okay. Well, I can. I mean, in terms of what
is the answer no then because your religion is incompatible with my moral views?
I mean, look, bro. If there's an incompatibility there, that's probably a you problem. That's not really something that my religion tells me that I have to send the message to the best of my ability and tell the people to the best of my ability. But guidance is not for me to decide. So
you should have done more taqiyya instead of just doubling down on the whole we should definitely be okay with having sex with 9-year-olds.
Taqiyya.
Like you just should have. You should have just lied. Like it's not a good look to double down on the 9-year-old thing. You should have said, oh well, some hadith say she was 19.
Dude, look, I mean, that was 1,400 years ago. In this country, in America, 150 years ago, the age of marriage was also 7 years old. Just so you know.
Yeah, and that was atrocious. That was horrible.
Okay, but the thing is, nobody can claim that if they were raised in America, in Delaware, 200 years ago, that they would somehow have the moral, transcension.
You know that there were people who were opposed to slavery even when slavery was a thing?
Yeah, that's true.
That doesn't, just because you live in a society where something's legal doesn't mean that everybody's okay with it.
No. I'm not making that claim. I'm not making that claim.
Then how can you make the claim that I wouldn't have the morals I have now back then?
No, right now you wouldn't have them back then, especially 1400 years ago.
How do you know?
Because your current morals are decided by your societal factors.
That's not my position. Sorry.
Dude, you wouldn't have like you don't come here and say you don't come here and tell people that, oh, I am 19 years old and I'm married to a 20-year-old. You don't tell them that's horrible and immoral because you don't have the developed brain and frontal cortex until you're 25.
I actually think that consent between young people is generally okay above a certain age. I think that there's an issue between people who are 50 and people who are 9, people who are 40 and people who are 19. I think that's equally problematic. Well, not equally problematic, but also problematic. But I don't have a problem with 19 and 20-year-olds in the same way that I don't have a problem with 2 15-year-olds making out. It's kind of
okay.
Weird,
So at the end of the day, whatever your problem is with whatever, like none of it is theologically significant in terms of, oh, well, because he did this, and I see that as immoral. That means he can't be a prophet.
any Western person with a good standard morals, right?
No, I know a lot of I have plenty. I have like 3 or 4 friends who are white people, born in America, raised Christian, and or even atheist, secularists, people who come from secular backgrounds, they accepted Islam. And when they heard about this, and I just explained to them that, she was a woman at the time, and that was socially acceptable, and that we don't believe that necessarily you have to marry 9-year-olds is not something incumbent upon us on the religion. They're like, okay.
Doesn't it say that you should treat Muhammad as an exemplar, as a role model?
Yeah.
Okay, so doesn't that mean that you should follow in his footsteps?
Well, if he married one woman who was 9 and he married 10 women who were divorcees and widows and older than him, what do you think is more fitting for us to follow?
So the role model that you're supposed to follow here is to marry several people, one of whom is a child.
No, we don't have to follow. He showed us what was allowed, what was permitted. He didn't. So
it's allowed to marry. So you should be allowed to marry a child.
No, because the child.
But I thought that he shows. I thought that he showed what is allowed to be done.
Yes, and the child.
And Aisha was a child, right?
At the betrothal, but the contract was in place. He had no contact with her until she was pubescent.
When she was 9, she was still a child, right?
Nope.
9-year-olds aren't children now.
She, according to her own report, how are you going to take our report, one part of our report, but not the other part of the report where she says she was a woman?
I mean, people can say lots of things about themselves, but whether or not they actually have a good judge of themselves at that age is a much different question.
Okay, so I mean, like, so if you want to disagree with the fact that she claims she's a woman, then you could disagree with the fact that she was 9. Like, I mean, at that point, if you're going to take our report, you take the report.
Being a woman is a subjective fact, right?
I'm sorry, what?
Being 9 is an objective fact. Being a woman, like, being a fully adult, mature woman, is subjective, right?
I mean, do you want to open up a discussion about whether gender is
no, I was talking about like maturity. Maturity is subjective, right? I mean, like if you talk to a 10-year-old today, they'll absolutely tell you, yeah, I'm mature, but like that they're not, right?
Okay, I mean, look.
Like, okay, actually, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. And then we can just call it there if you want. Like, we don't have to, but we can. If let's say that there was a 9-year-old who had gone through puberty, and she came up to you, and she said, I am very mentally mature. And then she shows you on her report card that she's like super advanced for her age. She's doing like, 10th grade math, whatever. She's a 9-year-old, very smart, talks very well, has started puberty. Would you feel comfortable having sex with her?
No.
Why not?
Because my personal preference is not 9-year-olds.
Oh, what do your personal preferences mean? And does that mean that Muhammad had a personal preference for 9-year-olds?
No, Muhammad is a special case because his actions were by divine decree. So, he was guided towards.
Wait, God commanded him to marry a 9-year-old?
Not by decree. I mean, it was revealed to him that he would marry her, and so he did. So yeah, you could say that.
Why would God command him to marry
your whole argument? None of it disproves divinity. It's just wait, 9? Wait, 9?
Yeah, this is a reductio, bro. Like
it's
any rational person will see this as a reductio ad absurdum.
I don't know what that means.
It means that I've reduced your position to absurdity because you've been forced to defend marrying.
It's an absurdity that you subjectively assigned, dude. Like right now, the age of consent in Japan is 15, and if you go there,
yeah, that's gross.
Okay, your opinion once again doesn't mean that Japan.
Your opinion too. Do you think that the age of consent? Wait, hold on. Do you think that the age of consent should be lowered?
Do I think it should be lowered?
Yep.
No opinion.
No opinion. You gotta have an opinion, bro.
No, I don't have an opinion. I don't have to. As a matter of fact, but here's the thing: the prophet
I think
in his
that's
example,
actually worse.
The prophet in his example was that he didn't tell us. Are you gonna allow me to finish?
I guess you can.
Okay. So the prophet in his example, it was not that do every single thing that I do, but rather he did the things that are allowed for us. So he set the lower bound, you could say.
Got it. Yeah, so 8 is far too early, but 9 is okay, right?
I mean, you're really going into the theatrics here. As a matter of fact, none of your arguments have had substance. It's all just, I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't
because
like it.
because you hold an absurd position that any rational person would laugh at.
No, I mean that's another bogus claim. You're saying any rational, so like you're basically like making a no true Scotsman theory, right? No true Scotsman.
No. I'm making fun of you because I'm making fun of you because you think that that defending a pedophile is okay. That's what I'm doing.
Once again,
look, if you came on and said yes, what Muhammad did was normal at the time, but I think it was bad, or yes, actually that hadith is wrong. She actually was 19 because another hadith said so. We could have had a reasonable discussion. We could have talked about philosophy, but instead you're on here defending having sex with a 9-year-old. And so I'm just going to make fun of you. I'm sorry.
I mean, you're free to do anything. That's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, I want the audience to recognize that you didn't make any tangible arguments or any claims. You're just doing insults, ad hoc.
It's not
okay.
An add-on.
Thank you. Once again, thank you for your opinion.
You're welcome.
Like, you can think it's disgusting, but once again, Islam, if you said that God made a mistake by making it Muhammad and making him do this, because then people would have a moral qualm with it. But the thing is, people have always had moral qualms, whether it was now or 1,000 years ago. They've always had moral problems, and God is understanding of this. And so he knew that it doesn't matter how I make him, because no matter what, somebody's always going to find a moral problem with it. Just like you, it's inevitable, right? We're not here to make sure that everybody.
So why didn't he make his messenger morally perfect?
He was morally perfect as far as I'm concerned.
He was morally perfect sleeping with a 9-year-old. Just saying.
Okay, like once again,
would it have been?
You're not making any arguments.
Would it have been more? Would it have been more, less, or equally morally perfect if Allah had ensured that Aisha was actually born 10 years prior and was actually 19 when they consummated their marriage rather than 9? Would that have been
equally
more,
moral?
Less, or
equally moral.
Okay.
Equally moral.
Okay, brother.
Because, like I said, divine command theory. If God commands something, that means it's moral.
Okay, brother. Wait. So you're a moral subjectivist then?
No.
Wait, did you just admit to moral subjective? You know that God's a subject, and so you get your morals from a subject, right?
No, but if he's perfect, then it's not. Then
Do you know what objective means?
Yes, I mean
what
objective.
Does objective mean?
Not subject to, or rather not subject to, but rather not dependent or contingent on human feelings, human conceptions.
That's not what subject means. That's not what subjective means.
Okay, then you, I guess, follow a different definition than I do.
This is the philosophical definition. Do you use like subjective morals and just when you say subjective morals, do you just think it means whim, like based on a whim, or based on like a vibe of a single person?
No, based on something that's not founded in something objective.
So the way that philosophers use the phrase, they don't even really use the term objective versus subjective morality, but they used to. The way that they used to use the phrase subjective morality is to refer to the morality stemming from or originating within an agent, a subject, rather than morality stemming from or within an object, meaning, a fact of nature, for example. You believe, if you hold to divine command theory, then that means that your morals are subject to God's whims. They are subjective based off of God's mental state and stances.
I disagree with your conception of God having mental states or whims. God is all knowledgeable, all wise, and so he's not making.
Classical, thank you for the galaxy. Does God not have thoughts?
Does God not have thoughts? I mean, what does thoughts presuppose that he has a brain? I mean, I'm not trying to materialize God here.
No. I'm just talking thoughts just presuppose that God has a mind.
In terms of what God is, or rather how exactly God works. You know, how big is he? How smart is? How many eyes does he have?
I didn't bring up any of that. I assume you think that God has a mind, right?
I'm making a point here to things like rather the materialization or rather the composition of God. Theologically speaking, for us, we don't really. It's really isma'na wa ata'na, which is like we listen and we obey. Yani we don't worry, so we don't ask questions about, oh, God sits above his throne. Where is his throne? What color is his throne? What color is God? You know, does he have thoughts? How does he think? We just know that he has a will and he enacts his will.
Deflecting. Does God have a mind?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know
what.
If
God doesn't have a mind, then if God has a mind, then God doesn't make then God is no more a god than a robot would be, or a book would be.
How do you define mind? How do you define mind?
You could define it as a conglomeration of past, present, and future mental states, perhaps.
Then no, he doesn't have a mind. What do you mean? Past, present, and future?
Or you could say like an eternal mental state or something like that, depending on whether it exists in time or outside of time, I suppose.
I mean, what do you mean by mental state? As in, like God can have different. He go through a depressive
things like having a will, right? That would be a type of mental state.
Yes, God does have a will.
So God has a mind then. And this is like, by the way, like this is standard Islamic theology to make the claim that God has a mind. In fact, some Muslims will say that God is a mind, which, you know, is interesting, and I think that's a perhaps defensible position. But if the theology is that God has a mind, and the moralities come from God's commands, meaning God, the subject, is making commands that are not derived from some object, but are instead derived from the subject, from God, then it is just subjective morality. You just base your subjective morality on somebody who you deem has authority.
No, but if the subject, quote unquote, is something that is unlimited in its perfectness and its attributes, then that is objectively a better standard than something that is I'm basing my morals on what the law says, or what this person says.
It's funny you say that, because saying that that's objectively a better standard is your opinion.
You said, repeat that one more time.
You said that it is objectively a better standard. By the way, being a better standard doesn't make it less subjective. But even if we grant that, like, even setting that aside, claiming that putting your moral authority in an infinitely powerful, infinitely knowledgeable being, claiming that doing that is objectively better is just your opinion. You would have to prove that statement if you're going to make that claim, or it's just a vibe, I guess.
No, it's not a vibe or anything like that. But when I say objective morality, when I'm saying an objective morality, I mean something that's external to human input.
Okay, but that's just not what philosophers mean when they're talking about subjective versus subjective reality.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine. You could adhere to any definition you want. But the idea is that if there's a maximally perfect being that created everything in existence, created you, then that he's free, or not rather he's free, but rather his guidance is going to be objective to whatever humans bring as guidance.
How is it objective? In what sense is it objective?
Because it's unchanging, it's consistent.
That doesn't mean none of those things are synonymous with objective.
Well, I didn't finish my sentence, but
okay, finish your sentence. Are you going to say objective at all?
No.
Okay, then it's not objective.
Wait, did you say I wasn't going to say objective within? But if you ask me to say how it's objective, and you're expecting me to say objective in the definition.
Well, yeah. So the point is unless your criteria depends on an object, i.e., not a mind, something external to minds, then it's not objective. That's just what objective means. Depends on an object rather than a subject.
Okay, I mean, then honestly, if that's the case, then the semantics don't really matter. Then whatever you want to say is morally objective or morally subjective. I'm saying, let's say just I have God-oriented morals, and you have emotionally oriented morals. I'm sorry?
I have person-oriented morals.
Okay.
And so now how are your morals any better than mine?
Because mine come from somebody who is unlimited in perfection.
How does that make them better?
Because unlimited perfection. So you're saying that if something is perfect, that doesn't make it better than something that's imperfect?
No, I didn't say that, although that is a point I could defend. But no, I didn't say that. You said that your God is, by the way, your God is not all loving. Your God is not morally perfect. You came in and said that.
You don't have to. Whoa. Who says you have to love everybody to be morally perfect?
Sorry. Okay, let me rephrase. Your God is not all loving, right? So there are some moral features that your God does not maximize.
Well, it's not a moral feature. No, but because his justice.
Well, no.
is
Love is an aspect of morality, right? We agree. Surely.
No, I mean, like, you could do the right thing without loving.
I would say that loving everybody is actually would be kind of required for moral perfection, at least in any like normal notion of morality.
Wait, you're saying you do purport that position that you should love everything if you're perfectly moral?
I would think so, yeah.
Well, that's such an interesting position. So you would love the murderer, you would love the rapist, you would love this and that.
I would think so, yeah.
No, how's that moral? Morality. I think a bigger part of morality than love is actually justice. And so if somebody is undeserving of love, you don't give them love, and that's more moral than giving them love.
I don't know if morality. I don't know. Well, I mean, like, would you say that like unlimited mercy would you say that mercy is a part of morality?
Yeah, but we don't say unlimited. We say the most merciful.
Well, the most so in principle, something could be more merciful than your God, right?
No, if its name is literally the most merciful,
well,
how could something be more?
So is your God merciful in every instance?
What do you mean in every? Well,
every
no,
instance
because
in which God could be merciful, is God merciful?
So
is God merciful towards the rapist, for example?
I'm sorry, what?
Is God merciful towards the rapist?
No.
Then God's not most merciful.
Well, here's the thing.
Towards the rapist.
If God had previously legislated that rape is wrong and that rape would allow you to be punished, and then somebody chooses to rape, it would be immoral for God to now waive the punishment of rape because he had previously legislated it. Because that's justice, right?
Yeah, but and in fact, this is actually one of the problems with perfect morality, because maximal justice and maximal mercy, both of which are considered moral virtues, are in conflict with one another.
No. Unlimited mercy and unlimited justice
maximal mercy and maximal.
Okay, so wait, so you're saying mercy in every case and justice in every case?
They are in conflict with one another, right?
I agree.
And so you cannot be maximally merciful while also be maximally just.
Well, that's why we say God is not maximally this and maximally that. We say he's the most merciful.
You literally said he was maximally merciful like 5 minutes ago.
I said he's the most merciful.
Okay, most and maximal are synonymous here.
No, they're not. Why would you say that?
You could be more
most
merciful.
And maximal, bro. If I am the fastest, that doesn't mean I'm maximally fast.
Wait. Most fast and maximal speed are interchangeable.
You realize it, man. You realize it.
Those are interchangeable.
If I win the race, what is
the maximal speed in the universe?
Speed of light, probably.
Okay. What is the most speed you can have in the universe?
The speed of light.
Yeah, they're the same thing.
No, but that's not the
comparison
here because I'm not talking about most in maximal.
So wait a minute.
Maximal sense of limit.
No.
So hold on. Let me give you an analogy now.
In principle, God could be merciful towards the rapist, but chooses not to be or is incapable of being so, then he is not the most merciful. Or do you just mean most merciful as in he's more merciful than every human, but he's not the most in principle merciful?
More merciful. He's the most merciful. Like, that's what I mean. When I say
but then he's not
fastest,
perfect. That's not perfection.
If you'd allow me to finish. If I say I'm the fastest because I ran a 4-minute mile, that doesn't mean that I'm the most fast. Or rather, I am the most fast, but I'm not maximally fast because I didn't travel at the speed of light.
Then your God's not
I'm
perfect.
sorry, what?
Using your definition, but it's an abstraction. It's not perfection.
Okay, so it's a little incongruent because speed is a quantifiable, whereas mercy is really something of an abstract concept, and so you can't really say that. If there's a, so if you want to say, look, we call him the most merciful because he is more merciful than anything else.
Oh,
that doesn't mean that in every instant you get mercy.
That's not a perfection grantor.
Sure, it is.
No, it's really not. Being more merciful than anybody else doesn't make you perfect. Because you could in principle be even more merciful than that.
He's perfect in the summation of his 99 attributes. He's not perfect.
So he's not
perfect in the way
attribute.
That. What?
So there could be a more perfect, merciful being. That's logically possible.
No.
But we just agreed that you could in principle be more merciful than Allah.
When did I agree to that?
Well, you said that he's the most merciful, not maximally merciful, right?
Yes.
If those two things are different, then in principle, something could be more merciful. Something could be maximally merciful. They just might not be as just.
No, I disagree. I disagree because
So now you're contradicting yourself.
No, it's not. It's not a contradiction because you're saying that there's something that could
hold on.
possibly.
Is there a mercy gap between most merciful and maximally merciful?
When we get it,
there's only one right answer given what you've already said, by the way.
yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying because if he's not merciful to the rapist, then that means he missed an opportunity where he could have been merciful.
Right.
Yeah, there is a gap.
Okay. So that means that it's logically possible for there to exist a being, I'm not saying that it does exist, but it's logically possible for there to exist a being that is more merciful than God.
No, I mean, no, I have to disagree because
That's
honestly,
a contradiction then. Because
No,
there could be a being.
It's
that's
not a contradiction
merciful
because
to
the
everything
moment
and the
that
rapist.
because the moment that something is more merciful than God, God would cease to be the most merciful, and so God retaining his attribute of being the most merciful means that he always has to be the most merciful, and so no, something.
Wait,
cannot
so is God more merciful than even possible worlds? Than even is sorry, let me phrase this in a reasonable way. Is God more merciful than all possible beings?
all possible beings?
Mm-hmm.
Is he more merciful than all possible beings?
Yes. Excluding himself.
Yes, he is.
Okay, but we just agreed that it is possible for a being to be merciful towards the rapist.
Yeah.
So that means that if God is to be more merciful than that, God must be merciful towards the rapist and then some.
Well,
But that's
because
a contradiction
every
in your view, because
mercy
you
to
don't
one
view
thing.
God as merciful towards the rapist.
But here's the thing: mercy to one thing would be a lapse in mercy to another thing. And so honestly, this
Can
goes
you
back to
demonstrate
the
that?
overall.
Thank you
Yeah.
the
So for
galaxy
example,
pen
if there's a rapist and a rape victim.
Integrum.
Oh, sorry. If there's a rapist and a rape victim, letting the rapist off the hook would be not merciful to the rapist or to the rape victim. I'm sorry. So the rape victim would be because the rape victim has more right to God's mercy than the rapist, and so the rape victim.
What is giving mercy? How is giving mercy to one person taking away mercy from another?
Because if I let somebody who wronged you go free, then that is not having mercy on you.
No, that's not giving you justice.
You wanted the satisfaction.
It has nothing to do with mercy. That's not giving you justice, right?
No. It's also mercy. It's also mercy because.
Okay, then you don't know what the word mercy means.
No, mercy. Excuse me.
Mercy means compassion or forgiveness shown towards somebody whom it is within one's power to punish or harm. You're not being less merciful towards somebody that you weren't going to punish or harm. You're not forgiving them less.
No, but
if you let
the rapist go free, that could have either psychological or possibly even physical harm to the rape victim.
So make sure that it doesn't.
What are you talking? Now you're making an argument for God's power and such. So now you're bringing in another attribute. This is deflection.
No. I mean, my point is that you could be merciful to a rapist in a way that doesn't affect the victim. Like that's unless you can prove otherwise. Like that's impossible.
So you could show mercy to the rapist in a way that doesn't harm the rape victim. So if you let the rapist go free, then that's somehow
not the only way. By the way, that's not the only way to show mercy, right?
No, but if you're talking about being maximally merciful, as in you give that, let's say you let the rapist free and then you give him a house and you buy him a car.
We're talking about God, right? So when we're talking about let the rapist free, what you mean is not sending the rapist to hell, right?
Yeah, and that's the ultimate.
And so
the spirit of mercy.
So how does it hurt the victim if the rapist doesn't go to hell?
Because they're upset that their person who wronged them did not see justice.
Them being upset
that's harm.
Denying them mercy.
Yeah, it is because upset is a harm.
No, it's not. People being upset being upset over your decisions has nothing to do with mercy. You're talking about justice. Dude,
what? Yes, it is. If I say something to you that makes you upset, did that not harm you?
You're confusing justice and mercy.
No. You're the one who's conflating justice and mercy because I'm telling you that showing justice to the rapist is going to be a mercy on the victim.
No, that's justice.
No. It's both. It's just
justice. It's not mercy.
No, it's not just justice. I disagree.
Because God is not threatening, or does not have the power, or I mean, God does have the power, but he wouldn't harm the victim.
Yes, he would. Yes, it would.
Why would he why would God harm the victim?
Now hold on. It's not. It's going to harm the victim in the way that. Okay, so like this. You said that being upset, or rather being upset is not a harm. So if I say something to upset you, or I do something that upsets you, that is a harm on you. I have harmed you, right? And so that's what's
You've been
meant.
harming me all evening, then.
Hey man, feel free to clock out whenever you want, bro. But in any case,
look. I mean, do you agree that mercy and justice are different?
Yeah, but they have.
So
but
is
they're
your claim that
related.
not getting justice is equal to, or is, sorry, that not getting, is it your claim that you can only get or you can only be shown mercy if you also get justice, and vice versa? Actually, hold on. No. Let's think about this. Can anybody be sad in heaven?
No.
Okay, so let's say that God sends the rapist to heaven. Let's say that, the rapist is executed for his crimes. He gets sent to heaven. God shows him mercy, right? That would be an example of mercy. Now, the victim doesn't know this, of course. The victim doesn't know God's mind, doesn't know God's will. So the only way that the victim would find out that the rapist is in heaven is by being in heaven themselves. But they cannot be sad in heaven, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is no harm done to the victim by being merciful to the rapist.
No, because you're actually
yourself.
It's actually just, and this is, so if you let me finish, this is actually a lapse in your, you could say, Islamic traditional knowledge, because we have the Day of Judgment, and on the Day of Judgment, that is when the scores are settled. And so on the Day of Judgment, they are not yet in heaven, and so that person can be upset.
Okay, so she's upset for a day.
Yeah, but guess what? That's still a mercy.
Then she's happy for eternity. So
but that's still a mercy. Your point is defeated because you're assuming.
No. Because
even that one day, you don't have the ability to morally quantify the mercy that she gets from seeing her rapist go to hell, and you don't get to morally quantify.
Do you get to see all the people who are being judged?
I'm sorry. What's your question?
Do you get to see all the people who are being judged and where they end up?
If they have wronged you, yes, you do get to see. Like you will literally be brought with the people who wronged you, and you will be brought back with the people who helped you and things like that. Yeah.
And so, can you be upset during this process if you yourself are going to heaven?
Yeah, because you're not in heaven yet. You're on the Day of Judgment.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think that we can quantify this pretty reasonably. Being merciful for eternity is more merciful than being slightly less merciful for a day.
Merciful? Are you saying merciful to the rapist?
To the rapist, yeah.
No, because again, honestly, because this is not something you quantify. You could say being merciful for this much, but in what amount?
So you can't compare finites, but you can compare infinite to finite, right? It is infinitely more merciful to grant someone eternal life and joy and happiness than it is for one person to get less joy or less satisfaction for a day.
That's not supported by anything. What do you mean infinite mercy? I already told you. I already told you that there isn't an infinite mercy.
Well, no, I mean somebody avoiding punishment for eternity is you granting mercy to them for eternity.
No, but it's not continuous. It's a one-time act. So honestly, it's not an infinite mercy.
Oh, it's not an infinite mercy that somebody goes to heaven forever?
It is the greatest mercy, but it is not an infinite mercy.
Okay. I'm glad you agree. It is the greatest mercy. You're right. Case closed.
I see. Okay, fair enough. You got me on the greatest mercy part. Okay, so in summation, and we'll wrap this up. In summation, the only arguments that have been brought today were really just emotional arguments, to be fair. Like they weren't really, arguments from
what just happened?
No, even that. I mean, like you're arguing about what's better, being merciful to the rapist, or being merciful to the victim. Like,
yeah, and you just agreed that it's better to be merciful to the rapist.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did. You conceded it when you said that it was the greatest mercy. You conceded it. It may have been an accident,
but that doesn't mean it's an infinite mercy. It's a finite mercy.
But it's still the greatest mercy. It's more merciful than anything else that could happen. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Good luck, brother. May science be with you. Muslims, well, okay, I'm not going to generalize all Muslims because most Muslims who are reasonable will not defend Muhammad marrying a 9-year-old. But, 22-year-old Muslims who are extremists or fundamentalists, not defending a pedophile, challenge impossible. All right, let's bring up a guest. Most will deny it. The ones I've spoken to, well, the reasonable ones I've spoken to will deny it.
Does my mic work?
Your mic works perfectly. How's it going, Classical?
What's going on, sir? I guess before we even engage, I don't really affirm to a set religion or really a dogma.
Do you have a firm belief in what the God you believe in, what properties
Yes.
the God you believe in has?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Before I let you go, I just have to send out an announcement. For everybody who's watching, make sure to like the live if you do. Keep in mind that any support that you send me will be appreciated, and you should join the Discord because it's a cool place to be. Anyway, so tell me about this God that you believe in.
Well, I guess first would be me giving you a definition of what I think the God is before we go into an argument on this. Yeah, cool. I define God as a being whose essence is characterized by a necessary existence, such that his existence is not contingent upon anything outside himself. Rather, his essence entails existence in every conceivable possible world. Furthermore, it embodies an analytical truth wherein the proposition God exists is true by virtue of the conditions contained within the concept of God itself, making his existence logically unavoidable.
Okay, so your God is consistent with my view of the universe?
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have any substantial disagreements, or are you just an atheist in disguise?
No, I'm definitely an atheist.
Right,
I didn't know what you're.
Get out of here! Go on, get. Oh, Griffin was supposed to be in the... Griffin, weren't you in the guest box just a minute ago? You have to be patient, bro. I guess Griffin doesn't want to come up. Bummer. All right, let's talk to... who should we talk to? Michael? By the way, if we get to 100k likes, which we're nearly at, I'll put my hair down, and you guys love that. Michael, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
Not a whole lot. What God do you, or what religion do you believe in, and why should I believe it?
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity, so thank you for inviting me up.
I'm no celebrity. I'm just a nerd. But what religion do you believe in?
Well, I believe in a God that loves infinitely mercifully and loves infinitely.
Is he infinitely just as well?
And it's extremely just, and that God is
extremely just, or just
the most just, the infinitely just.
But how can you be both infinitely just and infinitely merciful? Didn't we just go over this?
Because he paid for our sin. And because
you're a Christian?
Yes.
Why don't you just say you're a Christian?
Well, I was gonna get to that. I'm sorry I didn't say that. I was gonna say that.
So if he's infinitely just and infinitely merciful, don't you run into an issue? Should he forgive the rapist or not?
I don't personally. I understand it, so it's not hard for me to understand.
Should he? So does God forgive the rapist or not?
Yes, of course.
So then he's not infinitely just.
Well, everyone pays for Jesus Christ paid for our sin, so because he loves us, and because he loves us, he paid for our sin. And even though we sin, and we do evil things, it's not going to affect us infinitely or unlimited.
So how is he infinite? How is he infinitely just, or omni-just or whatever? Because it's not justice to forgive people who commit great crimes. That's mercy, and I agree that mercy can be very good, but it's not justice.
Well, justice is relative and justice is subjective.
It's not. Justice has a meaning. right? We can look up the definition if you want.
Yeah, but the meaning is dependent on the culture, and dependent on what culture you live in.
Well, I mean, so in what sense are you using that word when you say that he is infinitely just?
I'm talking about infinitely and unlimitedly.
In what sense? When you say just, can you give me a definition?
I'm talking about love.
Okay, so when you
Jesus
say
Christ
just, you
loves
actually
us.
just mean love?
I mean our God loves us, and because
Okay,
he
so
loved
you don't
us.
mean justice.
Well, he died. He died in the most unjust way for our sin because
That's
he
irrelevant
wanted
to the
to
question I'm
show.
asking.
Well, he showed us that he loved us, and because
Okay,
he
but
loves
that
us, he
but
died
he's
for
not
our-
just.
He is just.
In what sense?
Because
When you say just, what do you mean?
Well, even after, I'm talking about your afterlife. There is an afterlife, and there is a heaven.
Question.
And there is a hell.
Hold on.
There's a
question.
hell, and I'm talking about an infinitely. I don't know what you're talking about.
Fine. Question. Can a rapist go to heaven?
Yes, of course.
Okay, then that's not justice.
Well, it is if you understand what justice means.
Where's the justice? A rapist, he gets away with it his entire life and then dies and goes to heaven. Where's the justice?
Well, because all he has to do is believe in heaven.
What? Wait, do you know what
when
justice
he believes
is?
in heaven,
Do you know
and
what
when he
justice
believes,
means?
well, when he believes,
Wait, Michael, give me a definition of justice, please.
I'm not going to make a definitive person, but whoever commits rape, they're able to be forgiven.
Wait, Michael, please define justice for me.
Justice is basically justice is relative to your situation and your culture, and it is subjective.
I want a definition, just a definition of the word.
You can't define justice because it is subjective.
You absolutely can.
Well,
there are dictionaries
wherever
for that.
you live, there is different definitions of justice.
Words have meaning, right? Do we
Yes.
agree that words have
Of
meaning?
course.
So just means something like based on or behaving according to what is fair.
Well, justice is subjective, and it is based on culture.
Do you agree or disagree with the definition?
You have to define your definition because it wasn't very defined.
I read a definition for you. Based on or behaving according to what is fair.
Well, why are you so upset about justice? What makes justice the most important thing?
Maybe it's not, but you said that God was infinitely just.
Yes, I did.
I'm pressing you on that.
But you're making it the most important fact.
Yeah, because you get a contradiction if you have something that's infinitely just and infinitely merciful. And that's why I'm pressing you on it, because it makes your God impossible.
I don't think so. I think it makes it very possible because it's based on love. And every person is not,
and prove that it's possible.
Every person is not judged on their sin, and a rape is a sin. That's what I'm saying.
So they're not judged on their sin. So there's no justice for the victim then. The victim gets no.
They're not judged on their sin because sin is forgivable.
Wait a minute. So to be clear, the victim gets no justice.
Hey, maybe the victim committed a different sin at a different time, and because they got raped, maybe they got their
deranged.
Or maybe they didn't.
Michael, you're a psycho.
They just got raped because they are a person that got raped. Every culture can define rape differently. It's subjective.
Michael, rape is when you force somebody to have sex with you against their will.
Why is rape the most important thing to you? Obviously
it's a good example of a bad.
Is that the best? Is that the best example you can give a person because all you think about is rape, and rape is the worst thing in the world?
Well,
there's other things. What about hunger? What about dying of starvation? Is that worse than rape?
Yeah,
is that worse than rape? Honestly,
rape is worse.
The only point you can make is rape because you think it's the worst thing, and it is subjective.
It is really bad,
and it's based on culture. You know that. Don't even lie because you're just trying to make people think that they're the worst person because they commit a rape. They're not the worst person, and they can be forgiven.
Wait. Do you agree that rape is like when you force somebody to have sex with you against your will?
It's not the worst sin. It's not the worst sin. Why is it the worst sin to you? Is that the only sin you can think of?
I didn't.
Is that the only sin you can think that someone can commit?
Michael, why are you crashing out so hard?
Rape? Why? I'm not crashing.
You're crashing out so hard,
Rape is what you commit in your heart.
Chill. Pretend that you're having a normal conversation with a normal human and don't crash out, okay?
All right, you act normal and speak positively.
Yeah, okay. So look, I never said that rape is the worst sin. I just used it as an example because it's a pretty bad thing to do to somebody, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm using that as an example of something that like we all agree is really bad and there's no wiggle room, right?
But you can't agree that it is forgivable. You think it's unforgivable, which it is.
I never even said that, actually. I didn't make any claims about my own positions.
And do you think that a God that loves people infinitely can't forgive a person that commits a rape?
I mean, maybe your God can, but that's not justice then.
Do you think Jesus Christ could forgive, even though he died on a cross?
I mean, maybe, but it's not. Well,
what about dying on a cross? Do you think that's evil? Even though, do you think it's just?
Considering that he did it to himself, I think it's fine, actually.
Why? Because he said he died for our sin, and he deserved to die for our sin.
Yeah, he didn't have to. He didn't have
exactly.
to. He could have chosen not
but do you
to,
think
so
he deserved
fine.
it?
It was consensual.
Do you think that Jesus Christ deserved to die on a cross for our sin?
Well, no, I think it was consensual, so it wasn't like deserved or not. It was consensual.
Why? Because he thought it was just, right? And he said he loved us.
No, because it was consensual.
Well, did he say he loved us on the cross while he was dying?
Maybe he did. It's relevant for the point I'm making.
Well, then thank you.
But anyway, the point is that if the rapist gets into heaven, does the victim get justice?
Yes.
In what way?
Because they can go to their let's say you get raped in America, okay? Like any person that gets raped in America, right? You can go to your police department and you can report the rape. And in your
you
lifetime,
missed the rest of my hypothetical that I mentioned earlier. So the original hypothetical was guy is a rapist, rapes somebody, doesn't get caught, dies of old age, goes to heaven.
Okay.
That happened. I'm sure that happens sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because not every rapist is caught. In fact, most aren't. So in that case, does the victim get justice?
I'm just saying, in America, a person can report a rape, and the person that got charged with rape will pay for their sin, will pay for their rape while they're living.
In the hypothetical that I gave,
but
he doesn't get caught.
I'm going with your hypothetical. Let's say he got charged with rape and he went to jail.
That's not my hypothetical. You're changing.
Or he didn't. Now. Or he didn't. He didn't get charged. He got away with a rape, and somehow.
And then he dies of old age.
He never got charged, right?
Yep. Happens all the time.
But he went and he became a Christian. Let's say.
Yeah.
Okay, he can be forgiven and he can't go to heaven.
But where's the justice for the victim?
Let's say the victim never became a Christian, and they never believed that Jesus died on the cross.
Where's the justice for the victim?
Then they go to hell.
Where's the justice for the victim?
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, you're failing to understand.
You have to believe.
So justice for the victim would be a punishment for the rapist. That's how justice works.
Well, you have to believe
when
first.
Crimes are punished, right?
I'm just saying. I'm not talking about the crime. I'm just saying
I'm asking.
Let's say in this universe.
How does the victim get justice?
Let's say in this universe, right?
Against them.
Let's say in this universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe there's a loving God that loves infinitely, and he's infinitely just.
Justice. There's nothing to do with
justice.
Yes,
this is why, and he died on a cross. Our God died. He came into human form. Okay, he wasn't raped. Our God didn't get raped. Okay. Yes.
Sure? Oh.
Yes, I'm positive.
But
he had to drag a cross.
He definitely had a pretty close relationship with 12 dudes.
Okay, this is where I'm going on in the Bible. Okay, he had to drag a cross across a city in complete shame, but he wasn't ashamed, and he had to die on a cross.
Seems irrelevant.
I'm just. What's worse, dying on a cross or getting raped? What's worse?
Probably getting raped, actually.
I think dying on a cross is much worse than getting raped.
Well, you might feel that way, but regardless.
And I think if you take a survey right now of your, let's take a survey of your audience. Let's take a survey of your audience.
It's not going to go. The
this
way
is only your
to,
opinion. You're only going on your opinion. No. You don't even know how to argue.
I mean, look, I've been asking you, where's the justice for the victim this whole time?
What's worse than dying on a cross? You're saying getting raped is.
Probably getting raped.
That's like a complete subjective opinion.
Okay, so is yours.
Okay, let's take a survey. Take a survey of your audience.
We're going to, and it's not going to go well for you. I can assure you that.
Let's go right now. Do it right now. Take a survey.
So, I'm trying to, but it's not working. Okay, so happy face is dying on a cross. Sad face, dying on a cross is worse. Sad face is getting raped for 3 days is worse.
Yes. Let's take a survey.
Sad face, raped for 3 days is worse. Happy face, dying on a cross is worse. Both TikTok and YouTube are like wildly against you here, bro. $30 in and we're 10-1.
I see happy faces.
28 happy faces, 262 sad faces.
I would rather get raped every single day than have to die on a cross.
I'm gonna kick him. That's kind of gross. By the way, y'all, Dr. Samuel Augustus, thank you for the galaxy. You're so kind. All right, let's talk to Jordy Dobbs. Yeah, that guy was almost more psychotic than the guy before him. Jordy, how's it going? Please be less psychotic.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going all right.
Yes, less psychotic. So a little bit shy, but I wanted to approach to convince you to believe in a God from more of an agnostic point of view than a religious point of view.
Well,
is that okay?
Wait a minute. Are you an agnostic?
I fall somewhere between atheist and agnostic, probably more towards agnostic.
Then you don't believe in a God either, right?
I believe in some kind of God, but not a religious God.
Then you're not an agnostic or an atheist. You're a theist.
I suppose. Maybe I had the definition of agnostic wrong. I thought agnostic
means
is kind
that
of
you're
believing
not sure whether you believe or not. Roughly.
Well, I guess I would fall in that camp then. Yeah.
But you did just say that you believed in a God.
Well, I guess then I was wrong. Then I fall in the camp between agnostic and theist. Somewhere between there.
Okay. So you could be an agnostic theist. That's a good description.
Something like that.
Sure. Okay, what God do you believe in?
Okay. So, well, I guess my argument is that you're an intelligent guy, and why would you pin yourself to believing in no God at all when you could be an agnostic theist and have the possibility to have the potential to believe in many things? Like the possibility space of being an agnostic theist is far greater than being an atheist. So I can entertain the potential of believing in a benevolent God, a malevolent God, all-powerful God, or maybe a God that's not
more
all-powerful.
Options for belief is necessarily valuable.
I think it kind of is. I mean, would you go to a grocery store that only had like one ketchup and no other choices, or one meat and no other choices?
Not ketchup.
Right. But it's analogous to
not really
having choices.
Having more choices for beliefs that you aren't that like if you have more choices for beliefs, that means that you have lower credence in any one belief, and that means that your credence is more spread out amongst many wrong beliefs.
That's true, but then can't you filter through them yourself and try to figure out
what
are the right beliefs?
That's what I've done.
I think I just like having more choices that I could believe in any God I want to, as opposed to atheism where, you just...
What if I don't want to believe
there is no God?
If I don't want to believe in a God, then that's just as good as you having the ability to believe in whatever God you want, right?
I guess believing in no God is fine. If you want to be an atheist, I just kind of feel sad that, you die and that's it. You don't even get to entertain the possibility of an afterlife, which is kind of fun to do.
I mean, by the way, in principle, being an atheist is not inconsistent with believing in an afterlife. Like, for example, there are types of, I think it's like Theravada Buddhism, where they believe in reincarnation and then they believe in nirvana, which is an afterlife, but it's also an atheist, like, religious philosophy, right?
I thought that if you're an atheist and you don't believe in a God, then that completely destroys the possibility of an afterlife.
No, you could believe in an afterlife without believing in a God.
So somehow we continue beyond this form, beyond our physical form, into some afterlife?
Buddhism, there are many Eastern traditions that are like that, yeah.
Oh, well then, yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
So, do you ever do you ever have the urge maybe to not be an atheist and be more of an agnostic theist?
No, never.
Or no? Okay. Because I actually was an atheist for a long time, and I kind of just moved towards agnosticism.
I can hear you, by the way.
Theist agnostic. I kind of moved towards theist agnosticism because I like the idea of exploring what it would be like, or what our God is like. Maybe he's a good God. Maybe he's a bad God. Maybe he's all powerful. Maybe he's not. If there is a God, how would he govern the world? What would he consider is just? What would he consider is evil? What would he consider is good?
I mean,
there's so many possibilities.
You can entertain those thoughts without actually believing them.
I suppose, yeah, but it's... Yeah, I guess you got a point. I did want to also talk about the problem of evil. I think you were alluding to yesterday, where you said, if a kid was drowning in a pool, why doesn't God just save him, right?
Sure, but that doesn't
Seems
apply
like
to your belief system, right? Because you don't believe in a triomni God, so it's not relevant to talk about here.
Suppose. But just going to that conversation, so you said it would be a mean thing if a God didn't save the kid. Like if there was a God and he was all powerful and he didn't save the kid, that's awful. And I agree with you. And I think you said that if you've seen that, like if a kid was drowning and his parents were around, that you would jump in and save the kid, right?
Yeah, I would. At least that
would I would too. Yes, I agree. I would too. I think that's a good thing to do. Is something that a good person would do. But how do you know that's good? Like saving a kid.
I mean, so here's how we know. At least under the theistic position of most people who prescribed that kind of God, they also believe that we get our morals from that kind of God, which means that the morals that are intrinsic to us are godly. And so if we all agree that it is a natural moral response to want to jump in and save the kid, that is at least evidence that is the kind of moral that is implicitly built into us and given to us by God. But if that's the case, then that is definitionally moral, because they believe that the morals that are inscribed upon them by God are definitionally moral.
But are morals intrinsically inscribed in us, or are they learned?
Believe. That's generally what they believe, yeah.
Because
you might not. I don't.
For a long time,
I kind of agree, kind of disagree, but
well, for a long time, I thought, like, why does evil exist, right? If there is an all-powerful God and stuff, why would he let evil exist? And the only thing I can think of is that evil exists to give a definition to good. Kind of give a contrast, kind of like left contrast, right? Up contrast down, light contrast dark. Well, then how else would you define good without evil?
You could define it as things which increase joy, pleasure, fulfillment, things like that. You could define evil as things which increase misery, suffering, unhappiness, etc. But Jordy, you aren't really a theist, so I'm going to let you go and move on to somebody who has stronger beliefs about this, because we're kind of talking hypotheticals here. But thanks for being here, bud.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Good luck with your research.
Take care. So kind. I'm going to bring up a guest from YouTube. Guests from TikTok tend to be better, all things considered, but we'll give it a shot. Memory, you're up. Memory, are you driving?
Oh, hello?
Are you driving?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
What's happening? Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I know he's driving. I just want him to admit it. Are you driving there, buddy?
Hey, how are you doing today?
Also, I think there's some huge lag.
Oh, why did my audio cut back out again? I'm so sorry. Let me fix this, and I'll fix you.
You know,
my goodness, this is horrible. I was looking forward to this. There we go. Okay, can you hear me now? I can
hear you. Can you hear me?
Good. Yes, I can. Thank you very much. All right.
Are you driving?
I am, and my headset kept disconnecting.
Yes. So unfortunately, because I'm live streaming on TikTok, I can't have guests who are driving because it's against their TOS.
Okay. Well, let me pull over right now.
Promise.
Literally pulled over. Yes, I do.
Can you turn on your camera and verify for me? Nobody else can see you, but I'd like to see.
Well, sure, yeah. Let me do that then real quick because I literally just pulled into a parking lot, and I'll turn that on for you.
Okay, I believe you because you agreed to do it. You don't actually have to. Okay, cool. So, memory. Most people will be like, no, my phone's not working or whatever. Memory, what religion do you ascribe to, and why should I believe it?
We'll say traditional Christianity, traditional Christianism.
Sure. Are you like a Catholic, Protestant, Eastern Orthodox?
Specifically, I would say Catholic, but a lot of times the reason I say traditional is because when I've been in these forms of arguments and debates, typically I find and discover that not all Christians, even though they may subscribe to certain Catholic or Orthodox beliefs, they may not call themselves that. So it fits when in these debates just to say traditional Christian because some of them can get along with a debate and some of them can't. So
sure.
I guess I don't know if that makes any sense, but
context. It absolutely does. So,
okay.
Then yes, what would you say is your best argument for the existence of God?
Typically, it depends. Only reason I would, and if you don't want me to pry, I completely understand because my first I would like to ask.
An open book.
When you say, are you open to either a physical, metaphysical, spiritual, or scriptural evidence? Is that what you're looking for?
I tend to be pretty skeptical of metaphysical arguments, just because I'm skeptical of metaphysical objects. But aside from that, I'm generally pretty open to like any kind of evidence that you can present. Like in principle, I am open to metaphysical arguments, but like I'm just telling you I won't be convinced by them.
I absolutely understand that. Okay, so then I'll start with something simple that almost everyone should be able to grasp. It's a pretty easy, fun argument, rather. So take the example of a spacecraft or a painting, and I'm sure you've heard this argument before, is how do you come to the conclusion that there is no creator if you can see intelligent design at the very least? So do you not see or find representation of intelligent design within our universe, within the human body even? We could go so far as the brain as an example. Many other parts and aspects of nature. Do you not find intelligent life within that?
No, I don't.
Okay. Is there a reason why? What's wrong with finding let's say again, I can look at a spaceship, I can look at artwork, I can look at marble sculptures and say, yes, a man or a human created that, and we could replicate that with other humans. So as an example of the universe, we have no ability as of right now to replicate perfect human bodies, universal designs. We can best attribute that to some form of creator, not necessarily because we have nothing left, but because we can see patterns.
Yeah, so I kind of reject the notion that you're using of how we establish that something is designed. The reason why we know that a painting is painted and why a car is, assembled in a factory is because we have background knowledge about those things. In third grade, I learned about art, or I don't know, first grade, kindergarten, I learned what artists were. I learned what painting was. So I have this knowledge about what painting is. And so when I see one, I can use that knowledge to infer that there is somebody who painted it. Similarly, in high school or middle school or whatever, I learned that how cars were built. And so when I see a car, I can use that background knowledge to infer that, it was assembled in a factory. But I have no knowledge, no background knowledge about how universes are built. So I have no reason to think that it would have been designed or built by some sort of intelligent creator.
Okay, so then we'll get a little more specific in that same form of vacuum of question. What about, so then I assume you don't assume souls are attached to any human or even creature for that matter. So the existence of a soul doesn't seem to be compatible to your logic.
No, I don't think that souls exist.
Okay, so then the conscience. Do you find the conscience as an argument for some form of initial creator, or is it strictly a form of, I don't want to say evolution, that's not the right word, but some form of human reaction and I guess you could say evolution to their environment?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like consciousness is emergent from complex brains.
Okay. So then it does become more difficult, I think. And I think from watching your videos and some of your streams, I think it's great that you don't see many atheists or at least avid.
Oh, you there? Memory, all alone in the.
I'm so sorry.
You're good.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I cut out there. Where did you lose me?
Atheists, and then I think you were about to compliment me. You said something about you don't see a lot of atheists.
You don't see a lot. One, you don't see, in my opinion, you don't see very many active atheists anymore. So I appreciate your at least ability to want to engage with the people like us, I guess you could say.
Yeah, of course.
So I do credit there. The problem I think I do have then with someone like in your situation is if you can't give at least some form of openness to the fact that, like, it's hard for me to tie back consciousness directly to God because everything is rather subjective. And so it's like, okay, well, if the Hindu God says this, then this God says that, how do you know which one? So the best you can get to is down to the personal experience and, consciousness and where we develop. I apologize. Let me try to find a way to narrow it. Everything is so personal. So it's very hard if you're not willing to at least, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's not, or a defense, but like, if you're not willing to at least see the metaphysical or the spiritual aspect of things, it does become far more difficult to convince someone. Because, like I say as an example, prayer, most people believe that who do pray in many situations believe that the prayer works for them. And God hears that and answers that. Now, if
I have a question about that, if you don't mind me asking, about prayer.
I would love to hear.
So, I don't know what kind of Catholic you are. You said traditional. So, would you say that, let's say you pray for something, but the thing that you're asking for in your prayer is not in God's plan. Would he ever do it?
Yeah.
He would.
Exactly. No, he may not. And that's it.
Well,
he wouldn't. So let me give you.
He wouldn't, right? Because it's
not always. No.
Will he ever do it?
Exactly.
Even if it wasn't part of his plan?
It's that, so you must live in accordance to the best way you can to what he may be calling you for, or what be calling you to. So you can give an example.
I don't think that you gave an answer to my question.
Go ahead and re-ask it, please.
Yeah, so if you pray for something and the thing you're asking for is not part of God's plan, will he ever grant that prayer?
Each prayer is, I would think I'd have to say at this point, each prayer is different. And do you have an example you want to give?
Well, yeah, let's say that it is God's plan that, for whatever reason, it's God's plan that, I don't know, that your child doesn't get into Stanford for college or something, right? It's God's plan that instead your kid gets into the local state school. But you pray for it.
Okay.
Is there any possible world where God actually grants that prayer that your kid gets into Stanford?
So I think to start, and this isn't joking, this isn't jest, this is just the best way I can say it. I and most traditional Christians do not find God as a genie that grants wishes, but rather a God to help you communicate to him and with him.
Well, so whether he answered, what did you mean when you said that God will grant prayers?
Maybe grant's the wrong word, but I'll stick with what I said for the sake of trying to stay on the argument. God will speak with you, and there is divine intervention that cannot even simply be explained, even by Christians. I think there is some mysticism and some magic's the wrong word, some mysticism and some unique, again, something that's not physical to us that we can't always explain, and that's fine.
Hey, wait a minute. Did I just hear a turn signal?
Because I am in my parking lot, yes. I am.
Memory, lying's a sin.
No, you're right. It absolutely is. But yeah, so granting, are you wanting granting to mean exactly as I give you what you ask for?
What I mean is that somebody asks for something sincerely in a prayer, and then God says, I will grant your prayer and I will make it happen. Do you think that that happens ever or no?
I think it does, and I think it doesn't.
Does it only happen when the thing that they ask for was already part of God's plan?
Probably. Now, if predestination is where the goes,
that's not where this is going. That's not where this is going.
Okay.
My question is, if that's the case, why pray at all? Because if he's only going to do it if it's part of his plan, then you didn't need to pray for it. And if he wasn't going to give it to you, if it wasn't part of his plan, then praying did nothing.
So I believe that it's a relationship. It's not necessarily, again, this kind of goes back to my genie comment. God's not there to exist for you to ask him for something to give to you. God's there to have a relationship with you. God, what traditional Christians would say is God is our father. So we treat that as a parental relationship. When a child comes to a parent and says, my baseball glove is broken. I want you to buy me a new one. Can you buy me a new one? Says, well, I'm sorry, daddy may not have the money. It doesn't matter what the situation may be. We can't go get it right now. The case is that unfortunately you have a broken glove. What can we do about it? Well, we can do things about it. And as your father, he would maybe want you to take steps. He doesn't just give you something. There's a relationship to be had with prayer.
So why do people pray for things then?
Because God does work in miraculous ways and can. It's, again, he's not something that's just going to give you everything you want. He has fully the power to do so. And we have seen that. At least Christians would believe that they've seen that. But it's not something that all Christians must say, okay, well, I ask God, he's going to give it to me. It really isn't that way. And I think Christians that do believe that God's just going to give you everything, unfortunately, they're wrong. And we live in a tragic world. We are humans. We are fallen creatures. I think even most Christians tend to forget that.
Okay. Yeah, okay, no, that's fair. It's just, I just wanted to clear that up. So, question then is, sorry, just one sec.
No, I understand.
Okay. Right, okay, so, I kind of drove you off topic. Do you remember what we were talking about before I asked you the question about prayer? Memory, you there?
Yes, I am here. My mic keeps muting because I'm on my phone and my phone goes silent, so the web browser thinks you're gone. So, that's how that works. So I do believe that what we were discussing was, we originally were talking about, what it really would take to convince you, the physics of it, where I asked you where you could see God. And an example is intelligent design. That was I think the biggest argument we covered. I think if I'm going to convince you, I have to find a place to meet you. And if I can't meet you, then I don't know if I can convince you, because I do believe, as many traditional Catholic Christians would believe, God is a deeply personal relationship as well as he is a relationship to everyone. So I think one thing that I could say to convince you, if the arguments of design aren't going to convince you, then I would say maybe take a step into history. And I've heard your arguments before about the Bible. Yes, there are some absolutely wild and many, many things that are very, very, that cannot be answered within a simple 5 minutes or a simple explanation. Of course, the hacking of Agag, the smashing of the baby on the rocks. I know them all. I've debated them all and had all the arguments. They're very tough. They're very, very convoluted. And that's why I always come back to, we have a history. So we are humans. God created us to be, and you may have a point to this, God created us to be the peak pinnacle of Earth and the universe. I do believe that. The universe is grand and wonderful, but I think humans we are the apex. We are the ultimate creation. And I think that with the growing of AI, with the growing of all those other things, we're gonna really see what humans are capable of. But so, that's I think. Go ahead.
It's curious. This isn't really like a rebuttal. I'm just curious. Like, I'm sure you've seen the news. Let's say that the government finally releases actual evidence, not like this bullshit evidence, but actual evidence that we've been visited by extraterrestrials, that they have technology beyond our ken, that they are morally superior to us, they've eliminated war, they've eliminated poverty, all of these things. Would that disrupt your faith?
No, I don't think so. But and a reason for that,
we're not the apex.
No, I still think that we would be. I think we have no pure. We do have some things that are telling us that there could be other intelligent life, but we still don't have anything. The question you're asking is another big if. And I think there are many, many questions within that. Now, let's say that there are some crazy grand scheme aliens. I think we really do need to investigate what's going on here and why they are. Because if they are and they say they're what they are, get ready, because humans are going to want to fight them as well. And I think you know that. I think that humans will go, where are they from? What do they have? What do they want? And humans will do human things.
Well,
now, will humans win that battle? No.
Of course not. No, I mean, but the reason I ask is because, like, I don't know what you mean by apex beyond, like, you know, moral character and intelligence and, you know, these kinds of things, right?
I can give you something as an example, and this is biblical. This is at least Abrahamic biblical. This may not be something that can apply to all other gods, but there is we create and what is the technical? I'm already getting tongue tied, but in Genesis, we created them in our image. And what that basically what that does say, and you can kind of translate what the original verses of that means, is that they are the angelic beings. They are the image of the creation of God. So they are to be in like the image.
Okay.
So in the original in the Bible, it says in our image we created them, and what that is, there are many. I don't want to say angelic, but we are to be served by the angels, by the extras, these beings that even God created. So the world is to serve us. That is what basic biblical, at least Abrahamic biblical knowledge would say.
Well, but so I mean, like, okay, so you're just saying, like, no, it wouldn't shake you at all, which is fine. I'm just curious.
So I think, yeah.
Okay.
This is that my car is literally ringing because I'm trying to keep it running and parked. I have a junky car, so I am here stationed. But yeah, I would like to ask if, again, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste your audience's time. I appreciate everything, and I appreciate you giving me the chance. I don't know what it would take to convince you, and it is tough. I think these are personal. I think it takes time. Unless there's something you have for me that you would want to be convinced by, I guess I have to thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good, Memory. I appreciate you being here. Super good.
Yeah, you have
a good one, and drive safe, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Take care. Bro was absolutely driving. It's fine. We let those slide. When they're good faith, we let them slide. All right, y'all. It is 11 o'clock, or nearly 11 o'clock anyway, which means that I should probably end the live here, even though there's 13. I know there's 13 of you guys waiting in the guest box. I apologize. Actually, we have 7 minutes. We'll have a quick one with Reverend Paul Cross. Jovan, they all get posted. Okay, I lied. I can't do good service to anybody in 5 minutes. So we're just gonna end the live. Thank you guys for supporting me. You guys are so generous. You've been so generous, so kind today. I missed some super chats even, namely from 321 Biter for £2 and Nectu for $5 for groceries and science. Praise be Doug. Thank you guys so much for being so supportive. If I'm not live tomorrow, which I likely won't be, I will be live on Sunday for the Unapologetic live show. So make sure to go watch that. It isn't on my YouTube channel, and I will be live on my TikTok account. But if you want to watch it in the original format, make sure to go to the YouTube channel, Unapologetic Live, or the channel is just called Unapologetic. If you type in Unapologetic Live Show or something like that, you'll find it. It will be at 3 p.m. Central European Time, which is around 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll see you there.